Hey guys, um, welcome to another episode of She Knows Arsenal. This is usually our you guys let me know if you can see me and hear me. This is usually a um player ratings, but I do feel like time would better our time would be um better served um just kind of chit-chatting about the end of this season. Um okay. I see I have the wrong thumbnail up. Let me just change that really quick, but make sure you guys are in the chat letting me know how you guys are thinking and feeling. Um, it was a tough watch. I will say that. It was a tough watch, the game today. I do kind of understand why, but I also feel like if at any point anything had changed in the other game, we would not have been able to get out of our own asses to beat Everton. And that's probably what irritated me the most. Now, nothing happened. Nothing happened. Like Man City won, like we all knew that they would. But when it went 2-1, I kind of thought to myself, I'm like, well, we're drawing to Everton right now. We're drawing to Everton right now. And if it wasn't for Tomiyasu, we probably would have never scored a goal because everybody from in front of the back line decided not to show up today. And so if there was something special would have happened, we wouldn't have even had the mental capacity to make a to make a difference. And so um there's a ways to go in terms of mentality, I think. I do think also City probably win no matter what, but you know, just going into the final game the way that we did, we're not putting any pressure on them. Um, they don't have it in their mind that they're under any sort of threat whatsoever. And so, if the roles had been reversed and we were playing West Ham at home and we just had to beat them, and they were playing Everton at home, they would have beat Everton by 5 goals to 0, and we probably would have lost. And there would have been jeopardy, but it felt like there was never any jeopardy today. And I think that's really where we're at so far, is that there was jeopardy, but because we're such a soft touch at times, there wasn't really any, because City, even if City had drawn that game, we would have found a way to lose to Everton. So those are my initial like first thoughts, like, and that could just be because like honestly we played really poorly and made a really hard job out of something that shouldn't have been. But I just think there's like a mentality gap between the two teams, which you would imagine because they have won so many trophies. This is their fourth Premier League in a row. They've won the last 6 out of the last 7 or something like that. So there is a mentality gap. The manager is clear of Mikel, and there's not really anything to really like say otherwise. But to go into the final game and to play the way that they did, it really kind of rubbed me up the wrong way. Um, it really kind of rubbed me up the wrong way. So I'm finding it difficult to like even think about this. I know I'm gonna need like a couple of days to like really like relax for a minute and really think about the totality of the season. But this is like an instant reaction. So my instant reaction is they have annoyed me so badly. And if Tomiyasu had not scored, we would not have scored. Like trust, like we would not have scored because nobody in front of that back line was doing shit the whole game. So, yeah, it was stressful. There's also the conversation around Saka. People were talking about like this is what we look like without Saka. I'm not surprised that we didn't look the same. I'm surprised, like I do think we have a bit of an issue where players look like completely different players when certain guys aren't out there. That shouldn't be the case. And yeah, we just going into the summer transfer window, there's still major gaps in the team that need to be rectified. And so that's my initial just brain dump on you guys. And I want to know what you guys are thinking because the watch along was so painful. It was so painful. Not because City won, but because we were so fucking shit. And I'm just like, if for any reason something had happened in the other game, y'all wouldn't have had the wherewithal to get yourselves out of whatever funk you were in. Feeling sorry for yourself, you have no reason to feel sorry for yourself. You lost 2 games um in the middle of the season that you shouldn't have lost. So I don't know what to tell you. But listen, I love them, but they piss me the fuck off. Yeah. Nico says, big up Jess, disgraceful performance, honestly. It was really bad. Like, it really was, like, shockingly bad. So bad that it was just like, whatever. The Ace says, Tomiyasu scored, and that's his job. Even goalkeeper can score. Who cares? I don't know what this means. Boy says, we win the league next season. Tony says, it's been a great season. No one is happy, but I'm confident we go again. John P says, Kudos goal was class, though. Got a few minutes of hopium off of that. Boy says, missing Saka no doubt took a last bit of wind out of the players' sails. We are in a very good position going into next season. I do think, like, just there's no way that they can. There is a way that Arsenal can fuck it up, and if anybody can fuck it up, it's our transfer team. But it's so obvious what we need that I just don't even like. There's just no way. There's just no way. We need an elite midfielder. We need honestly, they really looking at the way they need 2 attackers. They do. But we probably will only get 1. But rectifying center forward or the wing position is going to take us up massively, massively. And then we need a fucking left back. Like, we need air, So there's no way to fuck it up. We know what we need. We don't need any surprises, So um I do think not having Saka there showed a glaring weakness for us, is that if Saka is not there, we don't have anybody to play on the right that even looks remotely usable. And I know some people were saying Martinelli played well. Whatever. We need another winger. Even if he did play well there, we need another winger. Neither him or Jesus give me any sort of confidence that if we bought somebody for the left, that they could hang out on the right. Trossard as well. So yeah, but Saka was a big miss today for sure. John P says, we played poorly, but disagree. We won with a late goal with the crowd as flat as it was, shows character, I believe. Burmy says, strengthen our squad this year and we challenge again next year. And Burmy was actually a part of the watch along, and I really appreciate you joining. We have big, big plans for the summer watch alongs. I know you guys are probably like, well, what are we going to be watching? Like, there's nothing to watch because we won't be playing. But for preseason, we'll obviously do the preseason games. We're also games where we feel like some of the Arsenal players will be playing internationally. We'll do watch alongs for that. And I'm actually planning on doing a classic rewatch playlist for you guys. So I don't know if you guys do. I love rewatching old games and getting back into the nostalgia. I think it's the 90s baby in me. I don't know, like, if you're a 90s baby, you understand. We love nostalgia. We love what we grew up on. It's the best thing since sliced bread, right? And so every week we're going to do a classic rewatch of a game that was from a certain era or whatever. I just have to find out where we can all watch them. Some of those are on YouTube. Some of them I know you can watch them, on other apps and stuff like that. So we will figure out a way to do classic rewatches for the summer, 1 per week, so we can all hang out together because, like, obviously. Let's see. Machado says, a great shame to lose the season like this. Remember Aston Villa and Fulham, 4 matches, 1 single point. This was our condemnation. Come on, you Gunners from Naples. I think everybody has like a game in their mind where this is where it turned. Like, this is the one. The fact that we have about 5 of those games that we can look at, I think is more that probably means that we just dropped too many points. We lost 5 games this season, I think, so 5 games is too many. And we kind of went back to type where we were the year prior, which is interesting because we got better in certain areas, but we actually regressed in others. And what I mean by that is we went back to, if we're losing, we're just going to lose. Like, we don't draw. We can't figure out how to draw the game. Like, there is no, like, at home, you should not. The games that we lost West Ham at home. We lost okay, so Newcastle and Villa away, Aston Villa at home, West Ham at home. We lost another one at home, didn't we? Or we lost another one. What was the other one that we lost? We lost 5 games, didn't we? Oh, and Fulham away. So two of those the games that we lost were at home, right? And that's just not good enough against City. You can only lose maybe 1 at home, and they really should be, if you're not gonna win them, they need to be draws, but we kind of reverted back to the team that, like, if we're losing, we just lose, and we can't figure out a way to draw or to get back into the game or, get up to another level. I've been asking all season, like, why does it feel like we can't turn it up a notch? Like today, I know it was, like, certain circumstances, but genuinely, we start off good and we win the game, and that's us 95% of the time. But if we start off poorly and we concede, that's it. We lose, right? Or we drop points. We didn't today, but you guys get what I mean. So those 2 games at home, Fulham at home, or sorry, what was it? Aston Villa at home and West Ham at home. Those should have been at the very least draws. And we just kind of reverted back to the team that can't come back and a team that doesn't draw enough. Because 2 more points and it's a little bit different, isn't it? So there you go. Um, let's see. C says, yeah, even if that was a handball, we owed plenty more. Oh my gosh. That handball, you guys, I was so angry because why are you even fucking looking at it? Why are you looking at it? Like, it was never a handball. The fact that he even had to go to the screen. It's very rare that they go to the screen and don't stick with their initial call, but he went to the screen probably because VAR was being a fucking idiot and was like, "Oh, it's a handball. Do you not know your own rules?" His arm, Jesus's arm is literally like this. Literally like this. Literally like this. And they're calling a handball. It also hit here, which is still above the sleeve. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, be fucking for real. So yeah. To me, it's never a handball. And if you think it's a handball, please go look at the rules because it's an unnatural position and anything above the sleeve is not considered your arm. So it's just never, ever, ever a handball ever in life. It just isn't. Unknown C says, "Hey Jess, drained, proud of the team, but need a serious mentality change in the team and club for next season. Need stardust players, need ruthlessness, need pressure from the ownership to win." I see you have a second part of what you said. Where is it? You said 1 of 2. Where's the second part? Oh, Cronkies and really us fans need a demand for trophies next season. Otherwise, we can very quickly start regressing. Anyway, thank you all for amazing content. One of my fave content creators. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Um, yeah, you've said a lot here. And it's tough, because I I don't know that how we think this whole thing should unfold, this process should unfold is going like I think the fans don't think it's going well because we're like some fans don't think it's going well because we haven't won any trophies. I think the club is very happy of the direction that we're going in because they're really banking on all these young players coming together and, getting better year on year. Uh, and then all of a sudden we're just gonna win. It's tough because they have to believe 100% that this is going in the right direction. Otherwise, this was a huge risk that we took that we didn't need to take, right? Because we could have hired any other very experienced manager. We didn't have to go in this direction. I've always said that we have never had to go in this direction. We always needed a rebuild, but we didn't need to go with a novice coach and all that kind of stuff, right? We didn't have to go with young players. We could have done something different. So they have to believe 100% that this is going right. But they also need to be, I think, more desperate to win sooner rather than later. And I don't feel like there's always a desperation to win things. I do feel like it's a little bit like, well, we're happy to be there. Now, that could be totally, I could be totally off with that, but just the okayness of it all, going out of the Champions League was very like, well, at least we were here. There's always a reason why um, things don't work out in our favor. And so, yeah, I do think there's going to be a lot. We were talking about this during I was talking, I don't know if y'all were even listening to me, but during the watch along, I was saying that, I don't know who's going to lose faith first. I think it's the fans. I think the fans will next season, if the beginning of this season is any indication of how this fan base's mind works, then at the beginning of next season it will be even more nervousness and anxiety around, we need to win, we need to win, we need to win, we need to win. And it does radiate to the players. And I don't know if we're built this way, if they can really perform under that level of pressure. So I don't know if they're trying to keep the pressure off, especially in the ether, where everybody can see it, try to keep the pressure off so that the players don't feel it. But it's next season, I could just see the beginning of the season, there's still going to be are we going to win it this time? Are we going to falter this time? Because this season was, it was not that enjoyable, if I'm honest, in terms of the only time that the season was really enjoyable was between December, or between January and March, maybe April. Once we got into the running again, it was not that fun anymore. And we went out of Champions League and the whole first half of the season sucked. So I don't know. I think maybe they're trying to keep the pressure off, but I just don't know. I don't know if the fans are going to be able to put, if they're going to put pressure, I think they'll just become apathetic. Do you know what I mean? The fans, I don't think we have it in us to all get together and really push and put pressure. I think we go into apathy very quickly, where we're either very disgruntled and we stop going to games, or we stop tuning in. And so I do sense that next season, especially if the transfer window doesn't go the way people want it, it'll be agitation, anxiety, stress, and apathy. And that will be terrible for the project. So I don't know if they should just lean into the pressure and really try to stop being so kid gloves with everybody. But I think that's why we do it. I think we do the kid gloves because they want to stop the inevitable apathy from coming in. But it's coming no matter what. It's coming. It's coming no matter what. Josh says, hell, even preseason games are nerve-wracking. Exactly. Last season, the season prior, it was like a surprise that we were so good. I don't think anybody really expected it. We're usually not that great in preseason, but the season before last, we were amazing. Saliba had just come back in. Gabriel Jesus was playing really well. I remember him coming in last couple minutes of that Nuremberg game, and then all of a sudden we were just really good. But I was at some of the preseason games, and they were not fun because it was quiet and everybody was nervy and we didn't look good. And that continued all the way until December. And then it kind of went away when we were playing well. But there was always this undercurrent of it's not going to be enough because we already dropped too many points. And so the season hasn't been enjoyable. And I do think sometimes when you're so used to not being involved in these situations, I think we're used to being, this is going to sound harsh, but I think we're used to being losers. So it's like that comforting loser in a position where we're not really winning anything, but we're not really under any sort of stress, and we're playing good football, and we have young players coming through. That was more comfortable of a position than where we are now, where we're expected to win. And I don't think when you're like, when you're used to being in a stressful situation and you kind of like relish it, you're relaxed in stressful situations because you know that like the reward is going to be so great. I think we get so scared that we're in this position that we almost fuck it for ourselves. And I don't think our team or the club feel relaxed in the stressful, pressurized situations. We don't relish it the way teams of the past have. And so until we get into a comfort, and even the fans, where big games come around and instead of we're going to lose, oh my God, like it's terrible, it's the worst, instead of doing that, we're like, but what if we do win? We're going to win. Until we get to that, we're not going to win anything, because the only way to win is to be in really pressurized situations a lot. And we don't deal well with pressure. Not the fans, not the players, not the manager. No one does, because we've been losers for so long. So it's crazy. Mr. Dextrous says we need to start out the blocks fast. I don't, to me, it's not even like start out the blocks fast. It's just make sure that whatever we're doing, if we change things, it doesn't change it so much that we drop points to Fulham in the first 3 games of the season. Because I actually think it was fine that we got much better towards the end of the season. I thought that that's the way things should have went, but we were too disjointed at the beginning. Too many changes. Gabriel out, Partey right back, 2 new midfielders, one of whom I've kind of like said, no, you're not a midfielder. Like Martinelli not playing well, Gabriel Jesus not involved, Zinchenko big part. Now he's not a big part. It's just too many fucking changes. And so we can not be our best at the beginning, but not being your best does not mean dropping points to Fulham at home. That's where we fucked up. Even like drawing Spurs at home and drawing Chelsea away, to me, were not the big problem. It was Fulham at home. It was Fulham at home. That was shit. So and I was there and it was awful. It was terrible, so it's crazy. Junior says, for me, 5 losses in the Premier League is unacceptable. It's too many. You can only lose like 3 games. And the funny thing about it is we didn't lose any games to a top 6 team. That's just, so and that's why like people are like, well, Spurs at home and Chelsea at home. I get that. Or Chelsea away. I get that. Because it's like you want to beat your London rivals, yeah? But really, Fulham at home dropping points is diabolical. West Ham at home, those are the ones. Villa at home, no. Because we all know that like the games against our top 6 rivals are, I think, more difficult. But I mean, maybe you could say Aston Villa is not as bad just because like they were actually good this season, but still, so yeah. Josh says our fans always are on edge, even in friendlies, and rightly so. We always know that things can always go wrong. But here's my counter argument to this is that, a lot of people will say, well, it's up to the players to make us believe, right? And they need us to help them believe, right? It's a two-way street. It's a relationship. It's a club. The club also is about the fans, which is why home atmosphere is so important, because if the fans didn't matter, no one would care. No one would care about home and away. So I do think it's a two-way street. I think the players need to grow up a little bit and persevere in difficult situations. I think but I also think the fans need to get a grip as well. And that's me included. Like, I'm not saying that I was sitting there in the Fulham game, like, yeah, guys, I was also fucking anxious. I was also thinking, wow, that like anything could go wrong now, especially because we conceded in those first 8 seconds. And it was just so reminiscent of the season prior. And so we have those scars. And so where we ask the players to have a goldfish memory, and forget what happened in the past, because they didn't even look like they had healed from the season prior. The scars were still there. So I think the club in general has to have the ability to forget the season prior. Make the changes in order to make sure those things don't happen again. But do you guys know any Liverpool fans? I really don't know very many of them, but were they like this? Before they had won a Premier League, or when they were going up against City for the Premier League, every season, did they come in with the scars, or did they go again? Because Anfield never sounded the way that the Emirates sounded. Anfield is always kind of like a fortress. It never has like that edgy bullshit that we have. I don't really see their fans going, "Well, we haven't won, so," because remember, it took them 30 years to win a Premier League. We're on like 20 something years. So I'm just saying that it's a two-way street. And so it's a relationship, right? And so as fans, we're like, they need to make us believe. But if you're sitting up in the Emirates and you're clutching your pearls every time, and you're, beating down on the players, you're quiet, every time Raya gets the ball, you're, you're not fucking helping, so we also need to take some responsibility. And so if we can't dust ourselves off quickly and go into the next season thinking, of course we're going to win, we're not going to win shit. I'm telling you right now, you're not. But that's just where I kind of am with everything. Arca says, we have had the second best season in the club's history. Let's not overreact. Um, yeah, no, I get that. Like but we have in the Premier League, we have. I would say that second best season in club's history overall. The season is not just the Premier League, and I think we often forget that, like, this is why, because I was saying this the other day in a group chat, that City are just way better than us. And I meant it, and I still stand 10 toes down that I think they're just way better than us. Like, and when I say way, I mean, like, there's quite a bit of gap between the two of us. No, we've been just as good as them in the Premier League, and I'm like, the season is not just the league. I saw Arsenal fans asking why they always have games in hand. They always have games in hand because they're always in every single competition until damn near the end. That's why they always have games in hand, right? And so we went toe to toe with them in the Premier League, but when you take the totality of the season, that they're able to win 4 Premier Leagues in a row. They don't even have to, like, we didn't even reach 90 points, by the way, which isn't one of the best Premier League seasons overall. It's just one of our best, right? Didn't even really need to get to 90 points. Winning their 4th in a row, went out to probably the second best team in the world, in the Champions League on penalties, are in a FA Cup final, so they're probably most likely going to win more than one trophy. The season prior, they won a treble, right? We're not really that close to them, guys. We went out of the cup competitions pathetic, you know? So there is a huge gap still. For us to get close to them. In the Premier League, we've kind of closed the gap, but they're still better than us. And so that reality cannot be, I don't think, understated. Like, we're not really that close. And that's what we need to look at, is like, as a club, we're still not really like competing, really. We're kind of competing in the Premier League, but like cup competitions and shit, we're far. Like, this is our first season back in the Champions League. We're far. Gary says Arteta thinks the domestic cups are worthless. I don't know. I don't know if that's what he thinks, because I don't know what's going on in his head. So I don't want to say, I don't really want to say that he thinks that they're worthless. I think the club, the team approaches cup competitions strange. Like, very strange. Like, but I also just feel like in general, cups are just so different than the Premier League. And as you've seen today, as you saw against Bayern, as you saw against Porto, as you've seen many a year in the Europa League, especially under Mikel, that we don't have the ability to play outside of our patterns. So when we're playing in cup competitions and you kind of have to throw that shit away, and you've rotated a little bit, you have to kind of be able to just like win the game. And we really struggle to find ways to win when the formula is not obvious. And so we're going to always struggle in cups if we can't kind of like tap into the more instinctual parts of the game, because fucking cups are so different than the league. Our formula to win in the league beats 95% of the teams. So we've done well there, but cups, we're still really far away. Like, Boy says, I think some of the bench players are nowhere near as good as some fans think they are. We can't rotate, so we can't do the cups. To see the my counter argument to that is we may not win every single cup, but I think it's atrocious that we don't even get to Wembley. We don't get to semis, we don't get to finals, and teams that are worse than us that rotate are able to get to finals. And so even if you don't rate Fabio Vieira and Emile Smith Rowe, I see worse teams with worse players with, getting getting through. You know what I mean? So I still think it's a mentality thing, because as much as maybe I don't rate some of our backup players, like what team, like Ramsdale was out there. Was it Kivior, Ben White, Saliba against West Ham away in the Carabao Cup? Jorginho, who started many games for us this season, Fabio Vieira and Emile, Trossard, Havertz, and someone else, Reece Nelson. Those players are not good. They're not all good, right? Um, but losing to West Ham 3-1 is just stupid. So I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it's just our bench is not as good, so we can't, like Liverpool were throwing that game and we could not beat them. We could not score at home with all the chances in the world. To me, that's not about a bench. That's a mentality problem. We don't play well against in cups. We just can't. Like we're not it. Like we're shit, you know? No, in the cups. We're really bad in cups. Blaze says Gabriel played against West Ham, not Saliba. Doesn't really matter, Gabriel or Saliba. The point is that some of those are not players that we don't deem to be shit. We don't deem them to be shit. We don't think Trossard is shit, do we? Do we? Everybody wants Emile to play. Emile played in that game, didn't he? Jorginho started games for us. Ben White starts for us. People wanted Ramsdale on the team. They wanted him starting over Raya. So it's not really the bench. It's not really just the bench. It's the way that we approach cups. Tawana says we need a better squad, and I pray we get rid of and bring quality players. Interesting about the players that could be sold this summer. Like we already know, like Cedric and El Neni are gone, which has been long fucking overdue. But goodbye to them, our longest serving blah blah blahs. We know Jorginho is staying. And so there's still like Nketiah, who didn't get any minutes today. Reece Nelson, Emile, which is a question mark. Fabio, who's still a question mark, I don't think he'll go, but and then you have players like Zinchenko. Where does he fit in? Where does Jesus fit in? Like if a good bid came in, will we get rid? Partey, as much as people were kissing the ground that he walked on, I still think you have to like acknowledge the fact that like physically he's not what people think he is physically. I've always said this about Partey. I really do think that like his best qualities are on the ball, and because he's African, people just assume that that means you're athletic and that you're good at, you're physical, and he is not that. He is not that. Like they were running right past him today, and they were running past him against United as well. So I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm really not. Like I think he's really good at certain things. But if it hasn't been obvious that we need to move on from him, I just don't know what else you need to see, because we got 3.5 good games from him, and all he needed to do was be good for these last 5 games, and he couldn't even do that. So he needs to be moved on. Um, and we need to bring in like an elite midfielder, like elite. Like most of the money needs to go to that. A lot of our problems stem from not having a balanced midfield, not having enough legs in midfield, not having enough technical quality in midfield. And we're getting bits and pieces from like 4 or 5 players, but like one good player would be so much more useful than the bits and pieces we get from Fabio, Emil, and Jorginho and Partey. We get bits and pieces from those players. That's not even like a full player. It's not even like a full real player. Like one really good player would be so much more useful than bits and pieces from all of them. They need to invest in that fucking midfield. They need to invest like hard, like with all the money, and then also get like a top attacker, Um, so yeah. Ayanle says Saka FC in attack 4 years. Arteta just bought one winger, no more defenders. Buy wingers and elite 8 out of 10. De Jong and 2 wingers. We're not going to buy 2 wingers. We're not going to buy 2 wingers. So I do think that remember who your club is. One defender. We know we're getting a defender. We know we're going to get a midfielder. And then we probably will just get one attacker because our Arsenal just want to maintain a level of needing something else. I don't know why that is, but if we were smart, we would get Sesko and we would go get a top quality winger. That's a starting level winger. I think we need a starting winger. And I've been tiptoeing around it all season because people are butthurt about Martinelli, but I don't give a fuck. Right now we have one top quality winger, like top level, and that's Saka. Martinelli is not on that level. And so there's just no way I feel like we can go into next season, especially knowing that him and Havertz don't mesh with him being our starting winger. Like we need another one. We need somebody that can have that individual brilliance. By Sesko. I don't know if you guys have been watching him lately, but he's the next fucking Isak. Like he's the next Isak. If we don't get him now, we'll be wishing we had in 2 years. And then get an elite midfielder, you know. But getting 2 wingers ain't gonna happen. If we were to get a striker and a winger, I would be so shocked because we always need something else, and that pisses me off. TBG says Partey's past selection is very frustrating. I also think Jorginho complements Rice better. Left center mid is the priority in my opinion. Partey should be sold or reduced to a squad player. He can't be a squad player on £200,000 per week. Starting wages that could go to like you could give that to like let's just say and I know this seems far-fetched, but if there was ever a chance that like the domino effect coming off of the Mbappe transfer would allow one of their players, one of their attackers to become on the market, you can't offer him, you need to offer him starting level wages, if not more than anybody else that we have in the team, right? And so those wages cannot be just chilling on the bench for 5 games. We just can't. It's not. You can't have that. So Partey he's just, I don't even think as a squad player it makes any sense. He's on too many wages. I'm starring some of these so we can come back to them as well. This is just a therapy session. You guys know how it goes. Like we could do player ratings for a game we don't give a fuck about, but I think this is what you guys really want to talk about is how do we move forward from here? How do we improve the squad? And I'm also like I'm starring some of the questions about Mikel because I want to talk about him in a couple of minutes, but I want to get the squad stuff done as well. Kamani says the problem with Arsenal is that we have to renovate in certain areas more than we're having the perfect balance. Let's see. Bro Pro says, I'll be real, Trossard is not a world-class winger, but he is a quality finisher. And he's the quintessential squad player, like a good squad player where most squad players have some flaws, which is mostly the reason why they're not going to start for us, right? But Trossard isn't so bad that he's like unusable, which some of our squad players are basically like non-fucking factors. Like they're not even, it's not that they're like unusable, like they make no difference whatsoever. They don't. And in a squad capacity, if you need 9, 10, 11 games to have some sort of impact on the squad, you're not a good squad player. Squad players need to be able to make a difference with whether they get 90 minutes, 30 minutes, 10 minutes. Trossard does that. He's also on good wages because he's only on like 90,000 pounds per week or some shit like that. So he's not keeping you from getting anybody else. He plays enough positions where, you can trust him in more than one position, and he makes a difference whether it's 10 minutes or 90 minutes or in a stretch of games. He's the perfect squad player, at least in like the short to medium term, right? But when you got guys like Nketiah that doesn't offer anything unless he's given a run of games, um, and is on high wages for an average player, he's got to go. Reece Nelson, he just doesn't give you more than energy. He's got to go. So Trossard is somebody that when I do hear people say that he needs to be sold this summer, I just think that they're living on fucking Mars. I just think that their brain has been completely just like how like on cartoons or whatever, they just cut the top right here and they open up and they just take the brain out and just walk away with it. And that person is just like, that's what I think, because I'm like, he's just the last person I would be thinking about, because he has given us like a lot of bang for our buck. We spent a little bit on him. We're getting a lot from him. If we did not have him, the Martinelli being crap all season would have completely sunk. Like it was the ship would have sank. So when I look at who needs to be moved on, that's not Nketiah and Reece Nelson, right? Because those are like the main ones. I'm thinking about guys that are on starting fucking wages that didn't do anything this season. And there's quite a few of them, so Trossard is fine. You know, Blank Face Killer says Martinelli ain't been on nothing this season, man. I mean, we'll see next season, because my prediction, and I'd love to know what you guys think about this in the comment section. My prediction is that people that have been screaming that it's just the left center mid, and that's the only reason why Martinelli hasn't played this season, are gonna have broke face next season when we get a new left center mid, or we have a really balanced midfield and he's still not really playing that well, or he's not as good as he was last season. I don't think it was just Kai Havertz. I don't think it's just not having Zinchenko and Xhaka. I think he's been found out a little bit, and that's why Arteta has still been looking for a left winger. Like, I say this all the time, but quite literally, if Chelsea had not come in for Mudryk would be an Arsenal player. Arteta was gonna spend 80 plus million on Mudryk. Like, let that sink in. Like, you're not gonna spend 80 million on somebody that's gonna sit on the bench behind Martinelli. That's not fucking happening. So there's something brewing there. And so, of course, the environment changing and being more stable will help him. But equally, if you can't even be functional, even in an environment that's not the best environment for you, but you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't functional at all this season. His touch is awful. Like, it's crazy. Like, the drop off has been outrageous. And it's not something that I could have foreseen, but now that I've seen it, I'm like, I don't know if it's just uh that the environment hasn't been good enough. Sam says, ever since Partey replaced Jorginho, things have been unstable in defensive midfielder area. Guy is overrated. You said it, not me. Where I was getting I told you so's a couple weeks ago, those have really calmed down. And I think it's because, whether you want to admit it or not, there's always a trade-off when you have players come in like the different qualities. You will get a better tempo and maybe some better balls in between the lines with Partey, but you were definitely more fragile at the base of your midfield, which is the strength of this team. Is the base of our midfield, the five that was sitting in front of, like, or the, whatever you want to call it, the five, the four, whatever, that are sitting in front of that are at the base of our midfield in defense is our strength, and it's been ruptured since Partey has been in there. And the game against Chelsea, I do think, has glamored people into thinking that, like, this is all that we needed all season. But in just a quick couple more games, I would hate to like it I would hate to have to go somewhere serious with him at the base of midfield, like he was getting tossed by Manchester United as well. So there's always a trade-off, not to say that there's not a trade-off with Rice. The trade-off with Rice is that you don't have that penetrative passing that you have with Partey. The tempo is slower. And so that's something that needs to be taken into consideration. What we do in midfield is gonna be so like I think revealing about how Mikel sees Rice. Not because I think that like Rice will never play six or never play eight, he'll be stationary in a position, but whoever we bring in, I think will tell us what Arteta really thinks about Rice's best um qualities are. My personal feeling on Rice is that his best qualities are defensively at the base of your midfield. He stops the counterattacks that other people cannot stop. And I'd rather see us bring in somebody that gives us a little bit more of that dynamic passing, but we don't have to give up so much of our defensive solidity. That's why I'm a big advocate for Bruno Guimaraes because he can either be at the base and Rice can do his galloping up front, but if you had Rice at the base and Bruno Guimaraes a little bit further forward, you're not going to be desperate for Rice to be playing left center mid because you'll have somebody that's good in attack or somebody that's good in and around the box. Um, Rice being our best number 8 is one of our biggest issues. Not having a single number 8 that you can rely upon to play in that midfield is one of our biggest problems. Rice being our best number 8 is a problem because I don't even think he's that good of a number 8. I think he's just such a good player that he can do a job, which has been basically all season is figuring out who's going to do a job in midfield. It's never going to be perfect or what we actually need, but it's somebody's going to be doing a job, whether that's Rice playing as the number 8 because it's our best box to box, even though he's the number 6, or Odegaard, dropping deep and playing more of like almost like a deep line playmaker so that we can progress the ball. Is somebody who's always doing a job. So whatever midfielder comes in needs to stop those two from having to do a job. You know what I mean? They need to highlight those other two best qualities. Like it's just so simple. Like I don't know why we're so hard-headed when it comes to midfield. So yeah. Let's see. Unknown C says, I agree on the winger shout. Martinelli was my favorite player, but he has to hold bench next season and fight his way back. Sun Sumna says, if you had an elite striker, you would have won the league this season. Your attack has been mediocre as fuck this season. Burmy says, our mentality needs to improve. We lack that killer instinct when we're struggling in games. Our lack of squad depth shows when one or two players are out, and this is a concern. But this is not a concern for City. I think these are all really good points. The mentality is definitely a problem. Anybody who's saying it's just that we don't have as strong of a bench as Man City is lying to themselves. And we do lack a killer instinct if we go, like again, if we go behind the season or we need to win it or we need to go outside of what we normally do. If plan A doesn't work, we have no ability to just like make it happen. We have kind of done it in certain games, like when in the beginning of the season we were scoring in like the 90th minute, 97th minute or whatever, but it's really tailed off towards the end. Like genuinely, if we're losing, we're probably not going to get back into it. Those Porto games were very revealing about who we are. We just didn't have it. I don't think we need to sell Martinelli. I see some sell Martinelli. I don't feel like we're anywhere near selling him. I just don't think he should be the ever-present starter. I don't think he has enough in his game. Aman says, I really hope Arteta ain't planning next season with Rice as an 8. His best qualities are at 6. He just needs a complementary partner like Bruno G or De Jong. It's going to be so important. Whatever we do in midfield is going to be super telling. But I don't think that it's ever going to be like, it should never be. I don't think it's ever going to be Rice is just the 6 and the other person is just 8. I think that person has to be good enough to sit at the base and allow Rice to go forward at times. But also like when Rice is sitting at the base, doesn't make it so that like our attack is just like stagnant. And there's just something about when Emil or Fabio Vieira play as the other number 8, where Rice can't get forward, and also, like, they don't add enough to the attack to make it worth being more fragile for some reason. And so that's why we need another midfielder. I don't know what we're gonna do about Emil and Fabio Vieira, but genuinely, we like another player where the sum of the two of them doesn't even really add up to one top quality player. And so we get bits and pieces from them here and there, but like genuinely, it's like almost like not having anybody for some reason. Like, um, they're weird ones. Like, are they just not good enough? Or are they being, are is it the way that we play doesn't suit their style? Like, what is it? I don't know what you guys think. But I don't know if it's like a little bit of both. I don't know. Another lost season for Emil. Like, it's just crazy. Boy says Jorginho came up so short against Bayern because he couldn't match their physicality. We are done with this guy as anything other than a backup. Marathon says, bro, my bad to say this, but keep it in the kitchen and leave us alone. I don't know what this means. Trini says, "Hey Jess, I just joined. Did we do a player season ratings yet?" No, I mean we're gonna do that. I kind of want to do that with other people. So I'm trying to figure out when Laura and Harry are ready to chat because I think that'll be better for a group discussion. But this is just more like final thoughts on the season, just kind of a brain dump. I feel like after games, sometimes you just want to just say whatever's coming to your mind, and then just you feel so much better after you have like a little brain dump. And so that's kind of what we're doing now. Theo says, if it wasn't obvious already, Jesus is done at this level. He's 27 and looks 33 out there. If a good bid comes in, I would sell. Tawana says, about our manager, sometimes he overthinks and puts us in problems. Sometimes he gets it right. And May says, we need to talk about Arteta as well, his squad rotation and how he uses his substitutes. And let's talk about Martinelli as well. He's been stinky this season. Well, let's start off with Mikel because we've already kind of spoken about Martinelli a little bit. But has Arteta this is a good question, I feel like, to ask you guys. Do you think Arteta has improved this season on the things that we asked him to improve upon last season? So the season prior, we spoke about having about 12 to 13 players that we could really rely upon, but kind of ran them into the ground and there was no options for them. And like other players just kind of sat around and were just kind of like on the outskirts. Like Tim Stillman says it the best. And so this is not my way of saying it, but he says Arteta struggles managing the gray areas of the squad. The gray areas of the squad are the players that a lot of people just say like, well, if Arteta's not playing them or they get 10 minutes here and there and they don't play well, it's because they're not good enough. But there are those types of players in the team. And I don't think he's maximized what he could get from them, even if they're not, as good as the starters, or we feel like we need to move on from them, what we get from them, I think is way lower than like what Klopp would get from them. Because I've seen Klopp get a lot from shitty players. Let me tell you, like, so is he maximizing the group, managing those gray areas of the squad? I know I asked last season, could we be better in cups? That did not improve. Um, like, is he more tactically flexible? I mean, some people will say that like going to Man City and playing a more cautious style is tactically flexible, but I actually don't think we ever played with any freedom. So playing more cautious against City doesn't really it's not like we played free flowing football at all this season. I think we've been very cautious, 11 men behind the ball almost always. Um, Even against really bad sides, there'll be moments where they'll have the ball for 5 minutes or so, and we have 11 men behind the ball, and we're kicking it out to nobody. There's plenty of games where Saka looks more like a fullback than a forward, and that's even against like bad teams. So I don't know if that means he's tactically flexible because we played very cautious all season. There was we never really took the handbrake off this season. I don't really remember any games where we took the handbrake off. You know, um, I don't know how you guys feel about it. Are there any games you can think of where you thought he really took the handbrake off today. I think we've always played with a little bit of restraint. It's just sometimes we're just so good that it doesn't matter. And the other team just once we get a foothold and we're on top, like they just are kind of like done. But I don't know if I saw that much tactical flexibility because we went into games where I knew exactly what we were going to do and I knew it wouldn't work. And I was kind of like hoping that we'd do something different, but it kind of was the same. And I feel like I saw that mostly in the Champions League. Um, so I want to know what you guys think about the tactical flexibility. Do you guys think Mikel has changed in terms of anything, you know, from last season to this season? Patrick says we get 3 league wins next season when City is thrown out of the league. Fair enough. Um, Terrence Tibb says we got better when Havertz came good. And what's changing Havertz? What actually changed tactically from the beginning of the season, like pre-Dubai to after Dubai? I think that's a good question, you know? Because I can't really put my finger on it, if that makes sense. What's different? I think it's just more we started putting the ball in the back of the net. So yeah. What do you guys think? Um, Ayanle says next season we will see if Arteta is the guy or not. Burmy says we need a versatile 8, a solid backup for Saka, and a left wing center forward to enhance the attack. Nuances of Fate says this is what you get with a green coach. Lost lots of on the job training. Honestly, we shouldn't be surprised. What about your soul? Says we need to be ruthless with everyone who's not contributing or reliable in general. Iman says Arteta defo needs to improve on squad rotation. He shouldn't keep players he won't use. And maybe that's something we need to look at is that if these players are so bad that he doesn't feel like he can use them, even in games where we're winning 6-7-0, like we never won 7-0, but you guys know what I mean. There was plenty of games where we were up 3-4-5-0 in that period where they were playing really well post Dubai, where you still didn't see very much rotation. And maybe he felt like, well, if we do rotate, we can't win 6-7-0, we can't win 5-0, we can't win 4-0. But if that's the case, then those players need to leave. We shouldn't be keeping them. We shouldn't be hoarding them. And so I would need to see Emil and Fabio Vieira and Eddie and Reese all out on the chopping block, ready to be sold, because there's no reason to keep them around because I don't act like you guys know, like I'm playing devil's advocate. If these players are not good enough, you should sell them. I don't think I don't think some of them are as bad as Mikel. Like, I don't think they're as bad as people think they are. I think Mikel is too afraid to make changes. I think he's too stiff. Terrence says we don't have players to take the handbrake off. Fair enough. That's actually really interesting, though. If we don't have players that can help us take the handbrake off, are our players as good as we think they are? Because I still think that maybe there's an element of restraint because maybe he doesn't feel like he has players that are maybe our players need to play in a more systemized way to maximize the best out of them because maybe they're not as good as we think they are. I'm playing devil's advocate, because I've seen Saka play with more freedom. I think he should be allowed more freedom. I think Odegaard should be allowed more freedom. You know, like we should be able to play with more freedom, but yeah. Ayanle says Arteta is also stubborn. Trossard scores and saves us, but he can't let him finish or drops him for Martinelli, even though he has been shit. Only when Martinelli cost him UCL, he finally dropped him. I think it didn't take him too long to change it. Let's see. Boy says, no, I disagree, Jess. Majority of people didn't want Arteta to rotate when there were good moments to do so. No, I don't agree with, I don't really agree because at the beginning of every single season, people one of the main things is I want to see more rotation. So yeah, like when we're playing well, people want to see the same team and they feel like we can't change anything. I've never really bought into the idea that we shouldn't change anything. We shouldn't even light rotation like the same 11 every single time. And again, if it is the case that even marginal rotation with 1 or 2 players out means that we cannot win games, or he doesn't trust them to win games, then the players that are on the bench have got to be replaced, because that's ridiculous. Um, but yeah, it's the level of the same 11, same 11, same 11. I know some people were saying like, "Oh yeah, well, that's what most good teams do. They have like a same starting 11." And I'm like, they do, but if they're up 5-0, they'll probably take their good players out. Like Saka wouldn't be playing 90 minutes every single game for Pep. He just wouldn't. Um, Even maybe for Liverpool, like he would get subbed off, and rest. So I don't know. It's a tough one. Let's see. Samuel says, "What are you saying, Jess? Odegaard has the most freedom in the team. If Odegaard has the most freedom in the team, then that's not that much freedom. So somebody having more freedom than somebody else doesn't mean that they don't deserve more freedom. We don't play with freedom in the front line. There's not a single thing that, first of all, Odegaard having the most freedom, he's had more freedom in the last 3, 4, 5 games, but before that, he didn't. So let's not like, I watched the games, so we can agree to disagree, but that doesn't even sound right. But even if he does have more freedom, that still isn't enough. When I say more freedom, I'm saying to pop up on the left-hand side, to maybe stay up. Whenever we defend with 11 men behind the ball every single time. When we win the ball back, if we don't get it and run it up the pitch, there's nobody to pass it to because there's nobody up there. So when I say with more freedom, I mean keeping players up, letting players get closer to each other, letting Odegaard pop up on the left, let Saka come more central, things like that. That's what I'm talking about. But Odegaard having the most freedom in a team that plays in very strict areas of the pitch doesn't really mean anything. And Odegaard doesn't have that much freedom. Nobody does. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Bro Pro says Odegaard needs to get away from Saka. That should be the evolution. I've seen a lot of people saying this, that he needs to move to the left. He needs to get away from Saka. I do think it's just an overstatement. Anytime Saka doesn't play well, it's because of Odegaard. Every time Martinelli doesn't play well, it's because of someone else. Sometimes our players just don't play well, and I still feel like Odegaard adds a lot to Saka's game. But if Odegaard in general had more freedom, he could pop up on the left and do what he did against Chelsea. That doesn't mean that he has to play on the left-hand side. And we wouldn't be asking Odegaard to play on the left if we had just bought a left center mid. A lot of the suggestions of Rice having to play 8, Odegaard having to play left center mid are all consequences of Arsenal not addressing midfield again. So address left center mid, then people won't need Odegaard to be on the other side just to progress the ball on that side. Rice can also just do what he does best. And maybe also having a better platform will allow Odegaard to be more free anyway, and maybe even Saka. So I don't think Odegaard needs to get away from Saka, but I also just think like sometimes your favorite player just plays badly because he just plays badly. Like it's not always somebody else's fault. So but that's always what it is. It's like Saka's not getting, he's not player of the season because he's next to Odegaard. Does that even sound right? Does that even sound right to you? Like he's not player of the season because other players play better than him, probably. The fact that he wasn't nominated is stupid, but he was never going to win it. He was never going to win it unless he just played better on his own. So I don't know. I really don't think it's just an Odegaard thing, but I think in general, everybody stays on their side and plays with their own pods. Saka and Odegaard play together, Trossard and whoever else play together. There isn't a lot of freedom to move and just kind of like play with any sort of like combinations that aren't scripted. And that's something that I feel like if they were just given freedom, nobody would be bitching about Odegaard and Saka at all. But they are always near each other because that's what the manager asked them to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Saka's being held back by any way. I think a lot of Saka's poorer games have come because he wasn't 100% fit or he was doing a fullback shift. And that doesn't have anything to do with Odegaard. Sam says, did you guys see the Foden goals? The comparison to Saka is insane. Terrence Tibbs says Odegaard and Saka are salt and pepper with some chili flakes. Boy says, why don't we just play Saka left center mid? Let's just buy a left center mid and then we won't have these problems. What about your soul says, I think our inability to sell players blocked us from getting elite quality in the transfer market. We need to change that without letting go of our best players. That's another challenge for us. I mean, a lot of people are like afraid to sell Emil Smith Rowe because they're afraid that if he goes to Villa, he'll just explode. But we shouldn't even be worried about that. People were up in arms about selling Balogun. I remember this past summer where everyone like, I can't believe we're gonna sell Balogun. We need Balogun. What's Balogun? No, Balogun. And it's just like, what has Balogun done this season? Like he needed to leave, and it was never gonna be like a game changer for us. Balogun's a bowler. He's a bowler. Like, what's he done? What's he done? Like, he ain't done shit. Willock, haven't heard that name in a while. What did Willock do this season besides sit on the medical table? Sell. Sell these dudes. Sell, 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 sell. I'm so serious. Just sell. Is get rid. Emil is being very much so held up by that 2021 season, and I get that it was a really good season. He scored a lot of goals, but that was genuinely like 3 years ago. Go. Come on now. TBG says cash is on ESR. Good, pure profit. Move on. Like move them on. Like 20, 25 million for ESR, move them on. And as long as we buy, and here's the problem, is that you can't sell ESR and then go buy some average midfielder. You know, selling ESR, like moving on let's say you moved on Partey and ESR. Moving those two on, you have to buy somebody that's like elite. And I think we do kind of not buy elite quality all the time. You know, we kind of buy somebody that's a little bit more like where there's like a galaxy brain in it, or we're gonna buy like buying it's, I know why we bought Zinchenko, but you buy somebody that's specific for the system, but not somebody that's necessarily elite overall. They have like one elite quality. Like Tommy is elite defensively and Zinchenko is elite with his passing, but like one elite left back would probably just be a better fit. And so this summer, I don't want us getting a player that's really good at one thing for the system. You just need to buy one elite player, you know, that just can do all the shit, you know, just all of it, all of it, all of it, all of it. That's all, you know? And so just do that. Just do that, you know? Um, but I feel like the problem is if you sell ESR and then you don't get that elite person, you get somebody that's just kind of, you know, maybe somebody that's good but not great, or somebody that we're hoping will become. You can't do that anymore. We're so beyond that now, you know? Um, so Arsenal need to pull the finger out and really just like, especially when it comes to midfield. Um, we've done okay with the midfield overhaul, but it's like very obvious that like we need just one more superstar in there. Um, like if genuinely, if we had like our defense is really good because we have very good players back there, but like we also have Stardust back there. Like probably our like Saliba has that Stardust. We're kind of lacking that in the other departments. Like you need, you need to make sure you have like a Saliba on every line. Rice and Odegaard are like fantastic, but they need someone else to add that like little, a little bit of extra. Also up front, those players are good, but you need somebody to add a little extra. The Saliba of midfield, the Saliba up top. You're not going to get that if you buy a fucking Onana who played against us today, and everybody that wanted him, I'm looking at you so fucking sideways. Like he's so average on the ball, it's outrageous. Why would we want him? He's not going to help us, So, yeah, those are my thoughts on that. I really do like Fofana. I know a lot of people are saying from Monaco, but he would have to kind of be a complement to something else. I think at this stage, even he would not be enough. Even he would not be enough. Foxy says, good effort from Arsenal this season. Gave it a real go. City hit form when it really mattered. Next season should be interesting. The funny thing is, we also hit form when it really mattered. Like, that's the crazy thing, is that this whole, like, well, City just turned it on at the end of the season. They won, what, all of their last games, right? Maybe drew, like, 1. We lost 1. So we hit form at the perfect time too. It's just the beginning of the season was just too it was too shoddy. Like, it was too shoddy. So yeah. Um Let's see. Blaze says Saliba's not going nowhere. People need to relax in the chat. Why would Arsenal sell him? I just feel like whenever we go through a period of, where we're not winning or we didn't win something, people just decide that the whole house is about to fall down right now. It's not. Nothing is ever as bad or as good as you think it is. Obviously, there's always a chance that we could lose our players, but we're not going to lose the likes of Saliba or Saka or any of these players now. We just need to you just can't get this summer wrong, and I feel like, and I would like to know what you guys think about this. Now that the season has ended, are we all kind of feeling like the summer window is why we didn't win anything this season? Because I remember from the beginning of the season, the question was always like, or it wasn't really the question. It was like, well, it's because we didn't do what we need to do in the summer. We didn't buy a striker. We didn't find a midfielder. Then that talk kind of went away because Havertz started working. Um, but two things can be true at the same time, that Havertz has shown to be a useful player that could be good at Arsenal. But equally, I still would have went back in the summer and done something completely different. I still don't feel like even what I've seen from Dubai on, that I still feel like I would have done something different with that 65 million. And he would have had to have really need to like he would have needed to probably come out of the gates as a striker scoring loads of goals for me to have changed my mind. But nothing about this season has changed my mind about we made a mistake in the summer. We really needed to either buy a striker or we needed to buy a midfielder. Either one of those would have solved a major hole that never really got solved, because if you think about it, everybody's been kind of like in midfield trying to do a job to complete the midfield and make sure that it's functional. And up front, it's like we're scoring goals, but when we really need them, we're still not getting them. So even just solving one of those could have been the difference between us winning something or not. And it really just never happened. We have somebody that plays up front that works but is not spectacular. And we have a midfield that functions, but we're still always missing something. So I still feel like we made a mistake in the summer and that I would do something different. I still would have done something different. And that's why going into this next summer, I just feel like we have no excuses not to get it right. We did a galaxy brain, risk it all on a player that we probably should have never bought. And it wasn't fruitful. It wasn't fruitful, yeah, it wasn't fruitful. Um, and that I don't hold any of that against Havertz. I think some people have taken it way too far and have like an actual disdain for Havertz when it's not Havertz. And I think he's done an amazing job in the second half of the season, but I still would have done something completely different. I still would have gotten the left center mid. Um, and we still probably would have missed goals here and there, or maybe we'd still be in the same position. I don't know, but because I know this didn't work, I would have went back and done something different. Um, Blank Face Killer says, no, I hold it against Mikel and Edu. TBG says, I'm actually surprised we managed to take it to the last day with no left center mid. If only we could have held on to Xhaka for one more season. And here's the thing, like, that's why I think it's so frustrating as well, is because like we were so close that, and we had to make it work a lot in the beginning of the season, and we still were missing some things. If Arsenal would just stop this close but no cigar bullshit, and I don't know why I feel like they're always just want to be really close. Because once you get to this point, people expect you to deliver, and maybe it's coming a little bit too quickly for them. I don't know. But genuinely buying a really good striker and buying a left center mid and getting rid of the left back rotation bullshit, we should be winning trophies. Probably should have won one already, so we are really close. But Arsenal don't need to be creative this summer. You don't need to be creative. You don't need to save anybody. You don't need to do shit. You just need to go out there and get these, but I still feel like we'll miss out on just one of them, just so that like we can keep the nonsense going or something. I don't, they're not self sabotaging. That's just what it feels like. Boy says, you man are going to be upset when Havertz is in all the big moments next season. I mean, I do think that some people have held it against Havertz to the point where, and I know this is true because they can't even celebrate his goals without being mad about it. And so, you can feel like Havertz was the wrong decision, but also recognize that he has been really good for us and come up in big moments. But there's probably just as many big moments where he's come up and and then on the other hand, big moments where he hasn't. And that's the real truth of Havertz, in my opinion, is that you can always name like the Brentford goal or whatever, but there were equally as many moments where he just had no effect on the game or missed sitters. And, I think about people talk about Trossard missing the sitter against Aston Villa. Havertz also had several chances in on goal where he just did not have the confidence to put in the back of the net. So you still have a player that, like, most times, Haaland is gonna get the goal. We don't have a player like that. I just know we're gonna have to miss so many before we put it in the back of the net. And so he can have big moments, but when there's also big moments where I'm like, well, you didn't score those as well, we're still kind of in the same position as we were. Bro Pro says, I'm not worried about next season at all. That's my honest feeling. Philip says, just the problem is that we couldn't attract those elite players yet. We could go after Hernandez Davies this summer on the left. De Jong, Kimmich, even a possibility. Add Sesko, two of these we cook. That's a decent point, that maybe we still couldn't attract them. And Arsenal would never let it come out. Like if we had tried to get an elite player and they rejected us, they wouldn't let that out. That wouldn't come out. But I don't expect to be hearing Onana this summer. Even with Zubamendi, to a certain extent. As much as I like him and I would take him, I do think we need to try for there are better players than him that I feel like we should go for. He's fallen down my list quite a bit, because I do feel like we should be attracting much better now. And there's no real excuse. If Davies is on the market, we should at least be trying. It would never stop United from trying. It would never stop any Chelsea from trying. It wouldn't stop anybody from trying. And I know it's like, but you never won a Champions League. I don't give a fuck. Like, I still feel like we should try. Like, we need not pieces of players anymore. Versatile players that can do something good in this game state, but can't do it in another game state that really don't complete the puzzle. We just need to go ahead and so I hear you on the Hernandez Davies thing, more on Davies than Hernandez. I'm a little on Teo Hernandez, but De Jong, Kimmich, Bruno Guimaraes, that is the league that we should be shopping in. I really don't want to see any other nonsense. You know, Joshua says the fan base is a disgrace. Fair enough. Dale says there is zero evidence Zubamendi would make a lot of difference. Yeah, there's no real evidence of it. It's just more of I think he gets a lot of stamps of approval from coaches that people really rate. And I think that that's a big thing is that Xabi would want him. Xabi wants him. Arteta wants him. So yeah, I think that that's kind of the thing. TBG says we need transitional inevitability in attack line. I do feel like all of our attackers are interior players, bar Martinelli, who I don't feel is world class yet. But also even if we buy these players, there has to be some thing with Mikel as well that you can't make all these players into these overthinking head cases when they get in the final third. So many of our players are so much more instinctual when they're with their international teams or, even before they came to us. Shoot on sight, had a lot more of that, what's the word? But more of that, like you were saying, that inevitability or would do things that were special. But because we place in such a strict system, it's stripped away from them. And you can't buy players that have that inevitability or that star quality and strip it away from them. You just can't. Even like towards the end of this, like the further the season went on, the less you can see the like it's going away from players. Like they come here, they have it, and then they can't do it anymore because our system doesn't allow for it. And so my biggest fear is that you would buy somebody like Sesko, who shoots on sight, that's a good ball striker, that is a natural striker, and all of a sudden he'll be false nining the fuck out of it. And he'll be a head case in the final third. It will be overthinking everything because we have to walk it in. He needs to figure out how to get the healthy medium of how we attacked last season and how we defend this season. I don't know how he gets there, but he needs to get there because not only are we a hard watch in attack, but I don't think our players are even having fun attacking. And you have to have fun. Attacking has to be fun. And I think at certain points, like when Saka is playing like almost like a fullback, when we are trying to walk it in, when it's like go backward, like, just hold on to the ball, it's hard to watch, So even if he gets these attackers, you can't strip them of what makes them special. And our like even with Saka and like Odegaard and these types of players that we talk about, I actually don't think they're that bad in attack. I think some of their what makes them special has been stripped away because of for the love of the system, you know? Junior says, Jess Arteta and the other guys are so smart. They have and should a list with 50 names for your analysis for working in the summer. Let's see. Joshua says, if the club is serious, they should be looking at La Liga top goal scorer Dovvik or Garassi. I hope we don't get those players. Like, look at the guy from Girona. He is good, but I think we could do better than that. Garassi, he would be like a really good, like, how like back in the day you'd have like your main striker, but then you'd have like another guy chilling, like that's a little bit older, but is like certified, like, somebody that can do like a Joselu type job, or, like even like how Kanu was for us, like Kanu not starting for us, like after like Henri came in and stuff like that, like his latter years at Arsenal, like not being a starter is outrageous because we like have it in our head that we like, that's like, that would never happen. But like Kanu not being a starter is outrageous because he could have started for anybody else. Like Wiltor could have started for everybody else, but we had them on the bench. That's neither here nor there. But he reminds me of that type of player, an older guy that's like certified goal scorer that you could have behind your main guy that's probably a little bit younger and more like more of an upcoming player. He's not somebody I'd want starting for us. But yeah, like it would be nice to have a player like that. I still feel like Arsenal, like we try to recreate the wheel a little bit. You either need to have the certified guy that's older and a younger up and coming, or the other way around. We want to have like Eddie and like Jesus. Like, neither are certified goal scorers. One is hella average. The other one is very like up and down, not really a goal scorer. So we try to recreate the wheel and do something that's like, we don't need to get a goal scorer. And then the backup guy can be an old guy but we know works, or, whatever, but we try to do something like we have to recreate shit. I don't know why. Josh says, I agree. You can't buy one good player. You can't buy a good player and mold them. There's a reason why you bought them in the first place. You can't buy Davies and then tell him to play midfield. The players are the superstars, not Mikel. And that is going to be the biggest thing this summer for me. Is one, we should be buying elite talent, superstars. I don't want to hear nothing about we can't attract them. I don't want to hear shit about we don't have the money. I don't want to hear nothing. I don't want to hear nothing about that. There's no reason to miss this summer. If you miss this summer, I don't know what to tell you. But you also have to let them be what they are. And if you try to mold them into a fucking robot, it's not going to work. It's not going to work, So yeah, TBG says, I think Saka especially has the game-breaking quality. Release him from the defensive responsibilities is a bit excessive. I think we've all kind of, spoken about this summer about Saka and the attack in general, is that they don't have enough freedom. The defensive responsibility is too much, especially for like a superstar like Saka, who is our star, right? Whether you like it or not, he is our star. And I do like, and some people were saying this about You don't like, look at Vinny and Rodrigo. You would never catch them doing the full back shifts that Martinelli is doing. I agree, but not for Martinelli. I agree for Saka. I think Saka deserves that freedom. I don't know if Martinelli is on that level, but I would like to see Saka with a lot more freedom next season. I'd like to see our attack in general with more freedom. I'd like to see them getting closer to each other and really connecting, and like, either our defense is not as good as he thinks it is, so we need to have 11 men behind the ball, or he trusts them that they can stop the opposition enough, and then we're going to be so good in attack that we score a lot of goals. And so he needs to pick. Amon says, I agree, Jess, especially against those mid blocks we face. We can be so boring to watch at times against those kind of teams. Listen, my cousin, who has never really been into football at all, she's my younger cousin. She's dating somebody who's a Chelsea fan. And so they watch our games. She's never watched football at all in her life until she started dating this guy. And Shay, if you're watching, shout out. But she even said we're boring. She was like, you guys move the ball. This is somebody who's never watched football before, said we're very slow and we're not fun to watch. And she prefers to watch Liverpool, who's a team that she adopted, because they're like, go, 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 go. This is somebody who's never watched before. So it is slow and boring, and it works sometimes, but like against the mid blocks, it's tough. We need to learn how to move the ball quicker and be a lot more free. And I think trust the likes of Gabriel and Saliba to save our ass, because we know they can do it. And that's the whole point of buying Declan Rice. And it's something that my friend Gabby said earlier in the season. She was like, what's the point of buying Declan Rice if you're not going to be more adventurous going forward, if you're going to become more defensive after buying one of the best defensive midfielders in football? That doesn't make any sense. And I think she made a really good point. Caesar says Sesko becoming a monster in 2 seasons, new winger, new midfielder that moves Rice and opens up the left to Odie, final left back, right back that secures the back line but pushes the line breaking passes and keeps the flow. Dale says Arsenal had to get goals conceded down from 43 to 29, non-negotiable. Arteta needs to figure out the balance from last season to this season. Terrence Tibb says Anelka. Keenan says Gracie is class. Terrence Tibb says Arsenal lacked a real number 9 when we had Henry. Social Join says Xhaka just played like he did at Switzerland. Josh says, I agree. You can't. Oh, yeah, we already said that one. There's so many comments and stuff. We could actually go for a little bit longer because I know some people are just joining. Boy says, how are we scoring 5 goals if we're playing boring football? You guys vexing me. I mean, listen, I feel like saying because you score 5 goals in certain games, that means that you play exciting football is a little bit disingenuous, but I get your point. As long as we're scoring goals, it shouldn't matter. But there were games where we needed goals, where we didn't play with any sort of freedom. We were so stuck in the way that there's a definite formula out there to stop us. Not a lot of teams could do it, but the teams that did it were very successful. And there were too many games where we went without scoring goals. Porto away was one of them. Bayern away, Newcastle away, Aston Villa away, Aston Villa at home, West Ham at home, Liverpool in the cup at home. There are too many games that we were shut out, so just because, in a certain period we were scoring a lot of goals, one doesn't mean that we're one of the better attacking sides. I think that there 2 things can be true at one time. We score a lot of goals, but there are games where we really need them and we come up with nothing. And I think that's because he doesn't allow the stardust to come out. He doesn't allow for players to have that moment of brilliance, because we just play in the pattern. And there is a formula to stop us. And a lot of some teams figured it out. So it's interesting that people feel like because we scored a lot of goals, we're a really good attacking side, when a lot of us still feel like we lack something. And so that's something to probably be teased out a little bit more, is just if you score a lot of goals, does that mean that the attack is fine? That could be teased out a little bit more, because last season we said that, we scored loads of goals last season, but we still came up short and won no trophies. So, and last season we were better. I thought there weren't as many games where we didn't score at all. This season there were a lot of games where we scored a lot of goals. Like especially after Dubai, there was a period where we were scoring 4, 5, 6 goals a game. But the season prior, there were very few games where we were shut out. Was there even a game last season at home where we didn't score a goal? So I don't know. Maybe we are just fine. Because if it's just the fact that we scored 5 goals in so many games, the attack is fine, then I don't know if I can rock with that. I really don't. Keenan says we just need a left center mid with a progressive style passing and a decent shot. Rice should play DM. Foxy says, which players are you wanting to be moved out of the club in the summer? Ramsdale linked to us. I'm hoping it's just a joke. Ramsdale, and I would love to sell him to Newcastle, Foxy. Ramsdale, Nketiah, Reece, ESR, Partey, and one of Zinchenko or Jesus. And I'm leaning more towards Zinchenko. So, and that doesn't include Tierney, who should be sold, Sambi, who should be sold, Tavares, cancel the contract. So that's what I'm thinking. Caesar says, how the F you lot want to play like last season? We had space to play like that. Now we don't. So the incomes has to be in the plan. The way we play is just best. Fuck. Fun. We fucking nominate teams 90 minutes. Saying wanting to play more like last season, I feel like people, it's very convenient to say that we don't have the space anymore, so that's why we can't play like last season anymore. The last season, attacking wise, there was a lot more freedom. Players played with more freedom, and there was a repercussion of that, which was there were more opportunities for the other team to score because we weren't as cautious. And so I do think, especially at the beginning of the season, we went way too far in the other direction. We were so staunch in the way that we approach games that we only had 4 players up sometimes, maybe even just 3. And so when you lack the ability to overload up front and to really pin teams in, it's harder for you to score, especially when you're up against deeper blocks, because it's just you don't have the numbers. We still have so many people back. Nobody is really making runs. The beginning of the season was awful. And so I get what you're saying about we dominated, but being a dominant team didn't win us the games that we needed to win, where we needed to score a goal and we didn't have the goal because we were still passing in the patterns. We weren't throwing men forward. We were so afraid to lose that even when we were losing, we still didn't go for it. And so I do feel like a certain group of the fan base had decided that because teams were doubling up and there were more lower blocks at the beginning of the season, that just made sense. But genuinely, as an attacking side, I do feel like we lack answers when teams figure out ways to stop us, you know? And so it's not just about and I feel like sometimes the answer is being more free, allowing players to create chances by dribbling through or getting closer together or switching positions. And those are things that we did the season prior. And there were less games last season where we came up with nothing, so it's not just last season was shit and this season was better. And so what do it's like you're removing too much context, I feel. All I'm saying is that there was a problem at the beginning of the season. It wasn't just that teams were in a low block, is that we literally could not create any chances. We literally were so poor. We couldn't score open play goals. That changed in the second half of the season. We were much better, but there were still games even in the second half of the season where we struggled to win, or to create the chances that we needed. And they were very few and far between, but it's just that amount that kept us from winning anything this season. So yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Tim says, if we reduce our goals against another 5, we stroll the league. Arteta focused on defending this season, was our best in 20 years. Keep the faith. I don't feel like it's even just decreasing the game. Like, I f I don't know. It depends on how you guys view games, you know? If, again, Fulham not even Fulham, let's take Fulham out because Fulham was like a game where we were worse than we've ever been. West Ham at home, we created enough chances in that first half to score several goals, and then we conceded 2. So I don't know if it's just like decrease it by 5. I think there's too many games this season where we should have scored a goal, but because we didn't score in the first 20 minutes, we started rushing shots, taking bad shots, overthinking in the final third. We went into halftime nil-nil or whatever, and then we give up 2 soft goals, 1 or 2 soft goals. That happened quite a bit this season. So I think it's just more like, how do we stop that from happening? Where why do we have to score in the first 20 minutes to have any sort of control? Like we should be able to get even to the 80th minute and still feel like we're going to win. Why do we have to score in the first 20 minutes or we're like rattled? And why do we have to give up the 2 goals? Why can't we make sure that we draw the game? So I think it's just more, it's not just that simple, just decrease by 5. I don't think it's just that simple. I think there's a mentality problem where if we didn't score in those first couple minutes and like we were like, okay, this is the plan was to score in the first 15 minutes of the game and then things would just go right. If we got past that 15-minute mark and they weathered our storm, we panicked and then we gave up soft goals. That happened too many times. That's what happened against Liverpool and that's what happened against West Ham. Weirdly, we scored early on against Fulham, but we also were like scared because we like whatever, and then we conceded 2 soft goals. So I don't know if it's just decrease by 5. I feel like it's more than that. It's why do we have to score in the first 15 minutes of the game or else we start panicking? What is that about? Unknown C says, and it's not just that we couldn't score in those games. We didn't look like we'd score in those games if it went on for weeks. Thank you. But we scored 5 goals in a lot of games, so the attack is just fine. It's not just fine. There's something if you there shouldn't be games where we don't look like scoring because I don't see any games where Man City don't look like scoring. We should always look like we're going to score. We should always think we're going to score. And even if we don't score, that doesn't mean we should lose. That's where I think we lost it. Joshua says, you want exciting football, bring back Mustafa and Holding. I don't care about exciting football. I care about his results. It's not just about it being more fun. I think people are conflating wanting more freedom with exciting. We are boring to watch, and that's an aside, but I think the boringness comes from the lack of movement, the lack of connectivity, players not having freedom, and maybe having more freedom would give us more excitement, but I think it also would help those games where we're trying to force things that aren't natural. Like there are too many games where when we didn't have any answers, instead of getting closer together and trying to connect and like really forcing the issue, we're crossing it into Havertz and he's the only one in the box and he's not doing anything. So don't conflate giving the team more freedom and allowing more of their star qualities to come out and, making sure Saka is not playing like a fullback, you know, with just wanting exciting football. I think that would be like a good consequence of it is having more excitement. But naturally, if you give players more freedom and they're allowed to do more fun, get closer together and have more fun and really attack, it's going to be more exciting anyway. So I think also like the same group that's like, but we're so dominant, like we're so great. Like, what do you want? You want more? You want more? We're so dominant. Also try to make it seem like there is no problem with the attack. There is a problem with the attack. It's not as good as you guys think it is. But fair enough, if you guys are okay with the way it is, then y'all shouldn't be asking for no strikers, no wingers, no nothing. Just go in with what it is and but you lying. So it's not just about exciting. It's about giving more freedom. You know, a result of that, it probably will be more exciting, but there needs to be more freedom. Tawana says, honestly, Havertz stepped up much more than Jesus. Hopefully he continue and get more goals. Jesus is, when I was honestly, you guys, like, genuinely, I'm not trying to even be like, you know, be harsh, but when I said it earlier on in the season that if a good bid came in, we need to sell, people got real like thing about it. And I'm just like, if his knee is gone and he has no explosiveness, then he can't do jinky jinky. And jinky jinky is all he really has. He's not a good goal scorer. He doesn't offer anything physically, so if he can't do the stuff on the ball because he's afraid that his knee is going to pop out of the socket, then he's of very little use to us. And so it's not about personally Jesus. It's not about Havertz either, because I think people that don't like Havertz picked up some like weird, like, but Jesus is amazing when they don't actually think that. All I'm saying is that Havertz Havertz was a lot more effective this season. I think more based on the way that we played. We were a little bit more we were giving less freedom, and so that less freedom required a different type of striker, because we really relied upon like the rotations of Martinelli and Jesus and him dropping in, and sometimes Jesus was at left back or DM. Those things weren't happening because we were a lot more, you know, stiff, so Havertz gave us more of like a focal point, and he ended up scoring quite a few goals. Now, if we look at his goal involvement, now goal involvements are everything. It's always about like all goals are not created equal. Goals in games where you needed to go ahead, equalizers, winners, those types of things are way more, they're worth more in the minds of fans than the third goal that you score when you've already won. So like Havertz goal against Brentford at home is weighs more than Jesus's goal against Man United, because we'd already won the game. The winner was the Rice goal, right? But Havertz has in the Premier League, he has 20 goal involvement. And last season, and this is so harsh on Jesus because he had the injury, right? But he had in the Premier League, he had 9 goal involvement. Oh, no, sorry. He had 15. No, I'm sorry, 17. So, Jesus last season, even with 4 months out, had like 2 less goal involvement, 3 less than Kai Havertz. But they basically had the same season because Kai Havertz was basically a nothing for the whole first part of the season. So they're pretty much, I think Havertz comes up in the big moments more than Jesus, and that's the main difference between the two of them. Havertz is never going to be a 20 goal per season striker, in my opinion. I think he'll always be kind of around these numbers, but he does tend to show up a little bit more in the big moments than Jesus. Jesus falters. That being said, we still need to bring in a striker. We still need to bring in somebody that could either right away or eventually be a 20 plus goal per season striker. We need it. Like, there's just no way really around it. Going into next season with Kai Havertz and Jesus as your main striker options, we're not winning shit. So yeah. Blaze says, since international game when Brazil lost versus Argentina, Gabriel Jesus wasn't the same player. This game affect him and Martinelli. I said that. I said that. When he said it, I was like, he's going into Lacazette. And people were like, it's not the same. And I was like, it is. Once, if you're a number 9 and you convince yourself that you're not good at scoring goals, you're done. You're done. You're finished. Because a striker, even if you like, Jesus is probably not, he's not a number 9, but he believes that that's where he should be playing. Coming to Arsenal was supposed to be like a second shot at being a goal scorer, and it didn't really happen for him. And so he succumbed to the mindset that he's not that, and his best qualities are everything outside of what he gives in goal scoring. Once Lacazette said those same things, he stopped scoring goals. He went through like an 11-month for something goal drought. It was outrageous, So he's Jesus, as much as I love him, he's already fragile mentally. And I think that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. So if you came to Arsenal to play number 9 and it didn't work out, I don't think that he will even be a good option as a winger for us. Again, if somebody offered us a decent a decent fee, I would take it. Because I also don't want Arsenal to have an excuse to not buy a winger. I still think like, imagine we buy Sesko. Like, let's say we buy Sesko, and so Sesko becomes the attacking player that we buy. Having a winger contingent of Martinelli, Saka, Jesus, and Trossard, it's still lacking, so I'm kinda hoping somebody maybe comes in for Jesus, just so that there's no excuse not to buy a winger as well, because I think we need to. I think we need a striker and a winger. Um, and when I say, like, a good bid, I mean, like, the most you're probably gonna get from is, like, 30 to 40, if that. Say Caesar says, "So no Jesus, fair enough, but no Havertz. Then who is your striker option then? The best scenario is Sesko as a super sub, has similarities with Havertz, but carries better with a shot, first touch." I mean, that's what I like, personally, I feel like would I based on this season, which obviously recency bias and all that type of stuff, I will admit that there's recency bias here for me. Um, to me, there's recency bias here. Is that next season, I would rather start with Havertz as my main striker and get Sesko and buy a really outstanding winger, special winger, than go with Martinelli and he be our main person on the wing. Like, I'd rather that be the, you know, kind of thing. But I think the winger is a problem. I think we need to buy another winger. It's a problem. It's the biggest one. I think Havertz is less of a problem at center forward than Martinelli is at left wing. That's how I feel. So if Sesko had to come in and be kind of like a backup and Havertz were to start the season, then I'd be okay with that if that meant that we got that like really good winger. Um, but that's just how I feel. And I know people are saying Havertz can easily hit 20 goals per season, whatever. If you believe he'll be a 20 goal per season striker because he will be not playing midfield the whole time, fine. You can think that. I still feel like he'll miss just enough chances where he'll be just around where he is right now. So I don't think it's as simple as if he just played there all season, he would have got 20 goals, but we'll see. Caesar says Kai ended with 20 GA in the league. Again, Sesko develop as a sub, and the money goes to midfielders and wingers. I think Sesko makes the most sense for us with the situation that we're in right now. As much as I know people want us to go for an Osimhen, we're not getting Osimhen. Osimhen's going to Chelsea. Get over it. Like, accept it. He's going Chelsea. He's a Chelsea boy, and I think he would wait until they became good just to go there as well. So we're not getting Osimhen. Tony should be out of your mindset altogether. And then you have Gyökeres, and you have Sesko. And Gyökeres, I really like him. I would take him at Arsenal. But I feel like the physical attributes that Sesko has, I would take them at this stage. I'd probably take the risk on those physical attributes marrying up with like a really good striker because personally, I think that we need somebody with pace, power, height, strength to play up front as a number 9 for us. Gyökeres is not weak, but he definitely doesn't offer that same that same threat, So Xerxes is also would be a good option, but I think he probably will stay in Italy. So yeah, I really do think that Sesko is probably what we should do, but that's just me. TBG says, who's to say Kai plus Sesko couldn't play together? We've seen a couple of times this season Havertz play at the tip of a diamond with Jesus up front, Luton away, for example. Me personally, I would get a marquee left winger. I would as well. I think we have to get it. I think our winger options are not anywhere near good enough. So yeah, Josh says, I don't even trust Arteta with a winger. Hell, mold him into another of what we have. Let's see. Keenan says, I don't think Bruno and Rice work in the same midfield. Thoughts, Jez. I think they complement each other perfectly, to be honest. I don't know what other people want in a midfielder, but I don't see why they wouldn't work together. What about them doesn't work? I don't see why they wouldn't work. I think you need somebody else that could be deeper so Rice could go forward. I think you need somebody that can also pass really well in and around the box. Somebody told me that Bruno G was not a good passer of the ball, and I looked at them like they had 5 heads. But I'm also somebody that's, like, wanted him since he was in Brazil, and so I really rate the player, and I don't really want somebody that's really good at only one thing. I don't want somebody that's like a Onana who's only really good at winning the ball back. I don't want somebody who's only attacking, but is gonna leave us susceptible in midfield. I want somebody that's really well-rounded, but probably is a better passer in and around the box than Rice. Somebody that also can exist in a midfield with Jorginho, because if Rice needs a rest or he's injured, I also have to think about who's gonna play best for Jorginho because he's gonna be the next man up, and so I think that Bruno G makes a lot of sense. Um, so yeah. Um, but I would say that maybe we disagree on Bruno G's passing ability, playing left center mid because he's one of the better progressive passers in the league. He creates a lot of chances as well. And one of the things I like about him is he can pass between the lines on either side, on the right or the left. He can always find the seams. He also is one of when they're on the counterattack, he's one of the first people that could figure out how to get it to Isak on transition. He has a very good range of passing, Bruno G. And so I feel like to me, like I feel like we have a difference of opinion on what Bruno G's strengths are. That's what I'll say. Um, Sene says, thoughts on Liao, Jess. I think he'd be really good for you guys. He has the game breaking quality, can make something out of nothing. He can, but he's the exact player that I don't think Arteta would want because he's too much of an individual. You know, he doesn't really work hard off the ball, and Arteta just like he's not like I have not seen him give any. Saka's his main guy, but Saka doesn't even get any freedom. So what is he going to do with Liao, who doesn't defend? Like Liao playing like a fullback would be insane. And so uh, this is going to be a very telling window for Arteta because we need elite players with the abilities that you're talking about. But I feel like he'll go with players that can be molded, that are a little bit less sparkly because they'll fit the system. And so he won't go for Liao. Liao could play for us if Arteta would loosen the reins, but he's not going to. And so that's why you'd probably want more of like a Neto type, you know, somebody that is going to sit on the halfway line and play like a fullback, you know. Brian, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, good to great. We are so close, but a few steps away. Big up to the boys for a good season. Big up to you for covering the team this season. Check on your content creator friends because we are suffering. Trust and believe. It's fun covering Arsenal, but it's also difficult because you have to relive all the bad moments. The good moments are fleeting, the bad moments live on. And so every loss that we've had, every bad moment that we've had, you have to relive it like twice, 3 times. So check on your content creator friends, please. Caesar says that's why Frankie is the best partner for Rice. Not good at defending. He's not isn't shit, but he's not great at it. But if we have Hato, then go passing, carries, strength, box crashing, long passing, right foot balance, Odie. My one thing about De Jong, I like him, I love him. I would take him in a heartbeat. I think he would partner Rice. And there's more than one player that can partner him well because Rice does so many good things. He's not so defensive and offers nothing else that like there are several different types of players that could partner him well. Frankie, the one thing about him though is that he doesn't offer any sort of goal threat. You know, so one thing about him is that he's not going to be like maybe Arteta could get him in those positions, but it's not really his bag. Like, you know, so I just wonder if Bruno would be better because he offers more of a goal threat, but that's just me. Concrete Jungle says, I'm wondering which manager out there that would beat Pep because Arteta outers seem to know. They don't know. They don't know. like there's only been one team in the last like 8 years that's been able to beat City to a title, and that's Liverpool in the COVID season. So, or like right after the COVID season. It was still COVID season because nobody was in the stands, I still think, or like barely fans were in the stands or something weird was going on. But that being said, if Liverpool's one of Liverpool's best ever teams that, I mean, was wiping the floor with everybody and was better than our team. I think that Liverpool team at the peak when Klopp was, when they were really going to like bar for bar with Man City is better than what we have now. And so if Klopp couldn't do it with that team, or can only do it once, being damn near perfect, then I do think it is a little bit disingenuous to say that if you just got another manager, it would just be like we would just magically beat Pep. Um, but I also just feel like manager out is very like is what like that's all you can do. You're not going to be able to get rid of all the players, so you have to get rid of the manager. And sometimes in another like I was thinking about this the other day. Sometimes I do wish they would get rid of Macau and then another manager would come in and us we would still probably not finish first and then see what the excuse would be because I don't think it's just as simple as sacking Macau. But that's just my 2 cents on it. Um Because also a lot of the outers, what they will say is, "Well, that's not my job to figure out who needs to come in, that's Edu's job," and I'm like, "I get that, but if you can't readily identify somebody that 100% makes sure that we win the league, then I think it's just you never wanted Mikel, and so you just want your moment to come where you're like, "He was never good enough," but it's not really for the betterment of the team, it's for the betterment of you getting more likes or being right, or I don't know what it is, because if you don't even make money off of it, like, where do you get your joy from? Like, how do you get off on it? I don't get it because it's like, for people that just wanna be right, is it that you're never right in your real life, so you wanna be right in I don't know, I don't get it because it's just like, if you can't name a manager that you know 100% gets it for you, like, I don't know. But maybe they're just like, they just wanna try it, I don't know. I've never really met an Arteta outer, maybe like 1 or 2 where I feel like it's for the betterment of the team. It's usually some ulterior motive, and you can smell it a mile away. Blaze says, "Bruno Guimaraes is a good player and has better passing ability. Some Arsenal fans are tripping." Um, sometimes I also just think like if you want somebody else, just say you want somebody else, but don't lie on the player. Like, because if you don't think Bruno Guimaraes is a good passer of the ball, you don't think that he's good passing the ball in and around the box. I don't think you watch him. Like, I don't think you watch him. He's an asshole and he's a little bit of a bully and has really leaned into this like this you know like thug thing, but don't get it twisted. The guy can pass, and whether it's on transition or at the edges of the box finding the seams in between to the likes of Gordon or Almiron or whoever, he's a really good passer. Like, so like, yeah. so So yeah, Boy says I don't dislike Guimaraes as a player. Technically, he's good, but he will get in trouble under the Arsenal lens. That's a good point, but I also we have to beat the ref anyway. Like every year, we have to beat the ref, so nothing would change. Nothing is, we really did well with the red cards this season. I will say that, but I still feel like we always have to beat the ref anyway. So I'm still going to get the best player. I don't really give a shit. Caesar says, thanks, Jess. Exactly. Leao, Rashford defend nothing and pressing, but with Hato and rotating midfield on Rice and new pivot midfield can work. Also, it's not like Arteta will train him on defense. This is going to be a really telling summer, I think, for everybody that wants these types of like elite talents or people that have that stardust to them. Like, excuse me, I like the idea of a Leao Rashford type winger. That's the type of winger that I would want. That's the type that I like. I like a tall wing forward that, has the skills and like scores lots of goals. I love that type of player. Um, but I just cannot see Arteta buying a player like that. I cannot see it. If you were to buy them, I'd be like, good, now don't fucking ruin them. Let them do the special shit. Like you almost have to like I know that we love the everybody's the same and everybody works hard and that's good. But I feel like that only works if you have like really top level elite talent all across the pitch. Otherwise, you have to figure out a way to really get your best players in the best positions to thrive. And sometimes that means that the other players have to work a little bit harder off the ball to allow those players to really shine, right? So it's the Pep model versus Ancelotti, right? Um, because it's not like their defensive players are not great, but they serve for like their job is to serve so that like Vinny and them thrive, if that makes sense. But we do the Pep model without the elite players all across the pitch, you know? So Pep and them, they defend in numbers, you know, they're all their players are required to defend. Like nobody's just standing up at the halfway line. Everybody has to work hard, everybody has to do everything, but they have elite talent throughout. And so either we have to have elite talent throughout or Saliba and them are gonna have to work just a little bit harder to make sure that the likes of Saka and them could have the freedom. Because my biggest pet peeve, no, this is not the biggest one, but this is the one that's on mind right now. My biggest pet peeve is when we're defending, we don't leave nobody up. So when we get in those periods where we're trying to like defend or whatever, we don't have the ability to transition because there's no one up there. Everybody's behind the ball. And I know that's kind of the strength of our defending, but it just pisses me off. Like when I see Saka kick it from inside our box and he's just like kicking it into nobody. Like, what is that? Like, you know, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I'm kind of like, we need to give a little to our attacking players, just a little bit. So yeah. Um, Let's see. Keenan says City are playing KDB and Foden in the eights. Bruno, Rice, and Odegaard aren't on the same level. Yeah, but I mean, we don't have to model everything thing that we do to City, and like I do feel like that's kind of a fatal flaw of us is like we can get to their level without copying exactly what they do verbatim. It's like, okay, so we need a Rodri. So you like Rice, if Rice is not a Rodri, then he can't be a six for us. Oh, okay, well, Odegaard, he doesn't have the running ability of KDB. He's not as good as KDB. So we have to get rid of Odegaard. And then so we need to be playing 2 8s and a 6. We can't, you know, 2 more attacking players and a 6. What we do with more of like 2 more defensive players and like a more attacking player, everybody's more equal, we can't do that and win. I think like there's more than one way to skin a cat. Like I don't think we have to have two like a Foden and a KDB like that's what we need. Because I also think that that's why people are still obsessed with ESR. They're obsessed with him because he's a better runner than Odegaard, and they feel like because we called him the Croydon De Bruyne, that's going to get us closer to what we want to do. We genuinely just need to have elite talent across the pitch. If we do it a little bit differently than City do, meaning we have 2 more defensive players and attacker, you know, or we do it different with different composition in midfield, like I don't see why we have to have KDB and Foden. Is it the level of the player or is it that we need to have the same structure of midfield? That being said, like if you're saying it's the quality of the players, we're not going to find a Kevin De Bruyne. So that's also like well, we need a Kevin. Like, is there another Kevin De Bruyne just fucking chilling? Like, I don't know what to tell you. So our biggest problem this season, I don't think was so much that we lack quality in midfield all the time. I feel like Rice and Odegaard are at a really, really high level, but we never had the balance right. So I think the balance is more important than anything else. And bringing in another player of a similar level of them will bring everybody up. Will we have the individual quality of fucking KDB? No. There's no one else like it. Like there's no other Kevin De Bruyne. There's no other, unless you guys think Musiala and these guys are like Kevin De Bruyne. I really don't think they are. He's a one of one. He's a one of one. So we have to figure out a different way to do it. And I think that's making sure it's balanced and the players of a certain level. And then what is it? All the tide lifts all boats. You know that saying? Where whatever. But if you're talking about we need a different composition of midfielders, I disagree. If you're saying the talent level isn't the same, I can kind of see that as well. I just think Kevin De Bruyne is a one of one, and we kinda need to shelf that a little bit. Um, Liverpool didn't have Kevin De Bruyne, and we're still able to compete with them. And it was still hard because, again, they have Kevin De Bruyne, and he's so different. He's just so different. So, yeah. Caesar says, "Bruno can't chat to Frankie on terms of carries, and as a pivot on the counter, Bruno is more aggressive with them lob balls. Best attribute, maybe way too aggressive and obviously defending and pressing." Yeah, but like, if Frankie is only better than Bruno at one thing, then is he actually better than Bruno? That would be my question. I think Frankie is a better carrier of the ball, and one thing we do lack is the ability to carry in tight spaces. I don't think we have anybody that's necessarily very good at that. But if Bruno is better at everything else, then you have to really consider whether it's worth getting the player that's just better at one other thing. But this is why, like, the building of our midfield has kind of annoyed me because we have a lot of players that can play midfield, that do play in midfield, but we lack so many profiles. We're still trying to complete a midfield that should have been completed probably 2 seasons ago because we've had plenty of time to build this midfield, and we're just now getting around to it because we've been buying so many defenders every single summer. But now we're one player away from completing the midfield, but we still probably need another profile, somebody more of somebody that can carry the ball, and give us something different. But we have Emil Smith Rowe, who people say that he's really good at carrying the ball, but he's kind of in open space, but not like in tight quarters. And Fabio Vieira is meant to be the more technical player that's supposed to give us the final ball, but Arteta's afraid to use him. So, like, really, we need 2 midfielders, but we only can get 1. So that player needs to kind of be, I think, more well-rounded. But idealistically, you'd want to bring in somebody that has another skill set that's like very useful. And we have those players, but Arteta's afraid to use them. So it's weird. The way that we built the midfield has been shit. It hasn't been good enough. Philip says, Wirtz could be KDB level, but City will get him. I don't know. KDB, I don't know. Y'all really think Wirtz is that guy? Boy says Wirtz gonna be better than KDB. The way Wirtz sees the game is different. You guys, we're talking about Kevin De Bruyne. He's gonna go down in history as one of the best midfielders that the Premier League has ever seen. That's what we're talking about. And like some of the midfielders that have come through the Premier League have been outrageously good. So I think we have to be careful about looking at players that are like the newer, fresher thing. Kevin De Bruyne hasn't had his best ever season, but the shitty season that he's had this season has been damn good as well. He's been injured. So I think there's always a player that comes up and then we realize that the original thing is always better. It's going to be really hard for me to believe that Wirtz is better than KDB or will be better than KDB. That would do you know how outrageous he would have to be? Like, do we forget? Like, we've been at the receiving end of many a KDB masterclass. So yeah, I'm having a hard time accepting this Kevin De Bruyne thing, but this is also why I don't hate our players or get frustrated when our players are not as good as KDB because I realize he's a one of one. We need to make sure that the sum of our parts are as competitive as what we can be against them. And I think just having another elite midfielder would help us quite a bit. Um, so yeah, I don't know about the whole Wirtz doing it. First of all, like, we're talking about KDB though. But see, this is the thing. It's like Wirtz is unbelievable. It's clear you watch him. It's clear if you watch him play. The conversation that we're having is not, is Wirtz a good player? Is he not really, really good? It's, is he going to be Kevin De Bruyne's level, if not better? And so don't change the conversation. If you feel like you can say with chess that Wirtz is definitely going to be better than KDB, stand 10 toes down. Stand 10 toes down on it. But as we have watched Kevin De Bruyne in this league, and I feel like it's really disingenuous to say that you think that when you haven't even seen him play in the Premier League. But listen, because I honestly, I don't even think the Bundesliga is that great. Like, so Yeah. Chris says, "I'd rather talk about the individual qualities of player instead of comparing players." Um, this is but again, I think it's important. That's why I don't really feel like I worry about, "Well, they have Kevin De Bruyne." I'm like, "Yeah, Kevin De Bruyne is one of one." So, we're not gonna be able to go out in the market and get another Kevin De Bruyne. Can we get another player that is elite talent and that will make us better and more competitive? Absolutely. And without Kevin De Bruyne, we've been very close. So, I'm more concerned about completing what we have, bringing in elite talent, not we need to find a Kevin De Bruyne. If we don't have that, we can't really no. Like, because we're not going to get one because he's one of one. He's one of one. Caesar said Liverpool had a whole different system, man. They did have a whole different system. You don't have to copy them to be able to compete with them. No, they still came up a little bit, they came up short, but like, I don't think Liverpool should have just copied City's homework. Chris said, "That's what I'm saying, Jess, I agree." Igor says, "Who would be your first target in the summer?" If I don't see a midfielder walking through that door first, I'm gonna scream because you know it's gonna be a defender. The first thing we're gonna do is address defense. And like in the last couple of days, I've kind of changed my mind on that as well because I know we really want Hato, and that's probably who we're gonna end up with. And I like him. He's a great young player. But if there's like I just feel like we need to buy an elite left back, and stop the nonsense. Even like these last couple of days where I know we're just going on and on and on, but whatever. It's still 500 of you guys in here, so I'm thinking you guys are loving just the blabathon. I just hit my tongue. I just hit my tooth. Oh my god. I could have just like knocked my tooth out. Um, but um like, even with Tommy, like, as good as Tommy is, he's only really good defensively. Offensively, he lacks. And so I'm not saying that the person that we should get should be all attack and nothing else, but I feel like we should get somebody that's just so good that it's not about them being inverted or more defensive. It's just like they're just better than everybody else. They're just better than everybody else. Like they're just elite, you know? Um, and so personally, I think um we need to look. Hato can be the person that but are we 100% sure that we'll lose out on the opportunity? Will he not be there next season? If you have a chance to maybe get somebody like Davies, you should probably try before you go for Hato. Um, so yeah, because I'm really tired of the left back merry-go-round of like, if we want to be more attacking, we can do this. If we want to be more defensive, we can do this. Just get somebody that's better than everybody. Can we not do that? Just get somebody that's better than everybody else. Can we not do that? Um, Diehard Gunner says Tomiyasu literally scored today. Tomiyasu did score today, but you know who else scored on the last day of the season, one season? Cedric. So scoring a goal doesn't mean that you're good offensively. There's been many a times where I've thought Tomiyasu is not who I want overlapping or on the edges of the box. So yeah, let's not be disingenuous. Cedric has scored a goal before. Like scoring a goal doesn't mean that you're good attacking wise. Everybody scores a goal. It's everybody's day someday. So when I say somebody that's better attacking, we all know what I mean. Let's not be disingenuous. Like, come on. When I think about a left back, I would like somebody that does everything very well, so we don't have to continuously, but if you guys are okay with Tomiyasu, you think he's really good in the attacking third, yes, go with that. But I know you're lying. Chris says, I like Tommy, but he's always injured. Can't rely on him for 50 games. That's another thing as well. Like, and people are talking about Timber playing left back. It's just so funny because, well, remember I told you guys about like the picture that Edu took the other day and that his little depth chart was behind him. You could read on that depth chart that Timber is right back depth, which really shouldn't be a surprise to any of you guys because he's right-footed. I don't know why we got into this idea that Timber was bought for the left. And I know Arteta said that he's going to play on the left and the right, but I think the fact that we are still linked to left backs would make it really obvious. Like we're not linked to right backs, we're linked to left backs, people that play on the left that are left-footed. Timber is going to be competition for the right. And I know that people don't want to hear that because then they're like, well, what does that mean for Ben White? It means he's going to have to fight for his position. It means that he's going to have to up his game. He's going to have to be on his toes. And I do feel like if we didn't have whatever Arteta was trying to do, and Zinchenko might have been fit enough to start the season or whatever, or he didn't stumble upon Timber being able to play on left back, then that's what we would have seen. So yeah, if Timber was always gonna play left back, we wouldn't be linked to them. We wouldn't be even trying to buy Hato. Like, Ben White is gonna have to fight for his position next season, and that's fine. Like, you can love Ben White and think he's so important to the team and he's a really consistent performer, and also know that, like, he's gonna have to work for it next season. Because Ben White has gaps in his game that Timber does not have. And so, yeah, two things can be true at the same time. That I love Ben White and I rate him very highly, but do I want to see him and Timber have to fight for that position? Yeah. And do I think that there's a good chance that Timber could start a lot of games next season? Yeah. And do I think it'd be a good thing? Yes, because Ben White needs surgery. I don't know if you guys read that, but Ben White needs surgery. And so idealistically, wouldn't it be nice if Timber could start on the right and Ben White could do his surgery and come back slowly? And we buy a left back that's an all-weather left back that can play every single game. And Tomiyasu becomes the backup for that position. I feel like that makes the most sense. Rid Kivior of this left back charade because it's not really his bag, you know? So yeah, I think that that makes the most sense, but people were yelling at me that it was always the plan for Timber to play left back, and again, I was looking at them like they had 5 heads. Timber can play left back because he's technically gifted, and that's the only reason why. Like, he'll most likely play on the right, and that's the best thing that we could possibly do because we need another dimension on the right too. Um, and Ben White needs a rest, so it makes most sense. Unknown C says, and we need a CM that can take the creative burden off of '08. I agree with that as well. Boy says both Timber and Hato would complete our defense because both of them can play fullback side and play center back. Exactly. I agree with that. 110%. First thing we've agreed on all day, boy. Let's give ourselves a hand. Me and Boy have finally agreed on something today. I love it. But it's so true. Like, that would just end so much of our nonsense. Saliba would have suitable cover because honestly, you guys, we're gonna probably go into next season without buying another center back, which should be fine because we have a bunch of fucking players that can play center back. you know. I like the idea of buying a center back just because, but our left back situation I feel like is more dire. It's more dire. It really is. Our left back situation is not giving what it needs to give. So buy an all-weather left back and somebody like if it's Hato, then he can play left center back. Timber can also play right center back. Ben White can play right center back. They can both play fullback. And you kind of got everything covered. It would still leave us where if Saliba or Gabriel got hurt, we'd be fucked. But like we need to be more able to like withstand a big injury. I next season I'm not gonna be hearing, well, so and so got hurt, so we just couldn't pass the ball. Like, no, I'm not hearing that shit. Caesar says Timber is elite, but depends. What? White simple clears him with his distribution, especially as a quarterback, but Timber can be all arounder right back. What he does is natural. White does it because his brains. I'm gonna probably say something that's unpopular, but I don't think Timber as a passer or his distribution is going to be that far off of what White can offer. Timber did a crossfield pass to whoever was playing left back or left wing, and it was like perfect today. He hasn't played at all. So Ben White is, I don't know, because again, like Timber comes from the Ajax Academy, so footballing IQ and technical ability, it goes like this in the Ajax Academy. You can't be no dummy. So it's not just that Timber is athletically superior to Ben, it's that he also has other tools to his toolbox that Ben just doesn't have, which one of them is his ability to carry. But I don't think that Timber's passing is that far off of Ben's. If not, they're pretty comparable. So I don't know. I thought this season, like when the season started, I was like, I feel like Ben is probably a little bit lucky that we have a left back situation so Timber can go over there, but I do think he's gonna have to fight for his spot. Yo-Yo says ended the season with Zin Timber either side of Rice, started with Timber Partey either side of Rice. Foxy says De Bruyne has 31 goal contributions, 10 goals and 21 assists in his final season in the Bundesliga with an average Wolfsburg. Wirtz hasn't done that yet. Grace prospect though. Foxy speaking the truth, like speaking the truth. The truth. I mean, listen, everything likes new and shiny, but one thing that I will never take away from Kevin De Bruyne is that he's going to go down in history as one of the best midfielders that the Premier League has ever seen, and that in itself is going to keep me from really going full with some of these youngins that are coming through because again, like Foxy is saying, look at his last season at Wolfsburg. He didn't even play from one of the best teams, but that is like elite output. And Wirtz hasn't really done that, but he is a great prospect and he is really good. And maybe he does end up being better than Kevin De Bruyne. But when we're saying things like that, it's like when people are saying like Foden is the best English talent that has ever come through. And I'm not even English, but I feel like that's so disrespectful to Rooney. But fair enough. I think that like new and shiny always feels like it's better. But when you really look back on it, you're like, was it better though? Is it better? Is it better? Is it better? Like, I'm not sure. So can it be better? I don't know. So yeah, that's just it. Die Hard says we don't have a left back problem. We absolutely have a left back problem. We don't have a single left back that we feel 100% confident in every state, like every game state. And we don't have one that can play every single game that we rely upon because two of them are injury prone. So how that's not a left back problem, I don't know, because now you can't rest White because you can't rely upon Tomiyasu like to be fit for games to rest him. And if you move Timber to the other side, then you're also relying upon Tommy, again, who's never fit, Zinchenko, who's never fit and you guys don't like, and Kivior, who's probably not the best left back. So we have a left back problem, which is why we're going to buy one. Vermi says there's a difference between players having a skill set to play multiple positions and those that are talented and coached to play in other positions out of necessity. Chris says, have you ever agreed before? Mark tour calendar. We haven't, I don't think we haven't agreed in months. So I'm feeling good about that agreement. Like I really am. I feel like I won today. I do. I feel like that's it. That's all I needed today was for me and Boy to have something that we agree upon. So finally, we're back on the same team. Caleb says, Jess, why do we need a left back if we have Timber coming back? Because that leaves us with no right back cover. Ben White cannot play every single game, every single season. Also, we need Tomiyasu and Zinchenko automatically put us in a bad position at left back because neither of them are ever fit for the entire season. They both miss almost half the season. So that in itself would mean that, okay, so let's say we just put Timber on the right. I just explained this, but I'll explain it one more time. Let's say we put Timber on the right. What happens if something happens to Ben? What happens? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? We're going to move Timber to the right. Okay, what happens on the left? Because it is like guaranteed there's death, taxes, and Zinchenko and Tommy are going to miss half the season with muscle injuries. And Kivior, would you want Kivior to be your starting left back for the whole season next season? Would you trust him to do that? I think that's the one thing we have to ask about our players is if this is the only person that you had the whole season, would you be happy with that? Would you be confident that we would win something with that player? Would you be 100% confident? I don't think we would be. I don't think I would be. And I like Kivior, but I do think he's just a center back. I think he did well in the period that we were playing well at left back, but there's still times where and DG has talked about this many times that he's been a little like shaky and sometimes we've been punished, other times we haven't, but some of his mistakes have been so big. And so I would say that a left back is needed. Even if you have Timber that can play on the left, because then you're leaving Ben White out to dry. And Ben White needs to have surgery, and he needs to be able to do that without feeling like he needs to be rushed back. So Timber is right back cover and always was. He was always right back. He only played there because Arteta galaxy brained and Zinchenko wasn't fit. And then it still didn't even work out because he got injured. So I don't know. Um, Blank Face Killa says Zinchenko needs to be on his way to Saudi Arabia or something by the transfer window. Yo-Yo says Arsenal's transfer activity under R2. R2 makes sense. That's what we're gonna start calling them when we fuse them together. R2 is akin to child playing with their food. Igor says, but that's assuming that White is getting season-ending injury. It's not assuming that. It's Ben White has played. Okay, so when he did his renewal, did you not read any of the stuff? If you haven't, he plays with injuries all the time. He shouldn't have to. He shouldn't have to. And he's needed surgery on whatever he has going on with his knee. He needs surgery. And so it's not about a season ending injury. It's about being able to give players that have played probably 3 seasons now with no rest an opportunity to sit their asses down. Saka, Odegaard, and White in particular, they have no backups. Not a single one of them have a backup. We ran them into the ground. And that's why in certain parts of the season, they go through like 4 or 5 games where they just don't even look like themselves or they can barely walk because they need to sit down. And so if we want to be able to compete in 4 competitions and be able to do what City do, which is not get bopped out of every cup competition early, we have to have players that can step in for these guys that we feel confident in. And so it's not about White getting a season-ending injury. It's about, one, he has gaps in his game, and so it would be nice to have somebody else that can actually do things that he can't do. It'd be nice for him to be able to sit down and for us not to have a bunch of players trying to cover a bunch of different positions and for us to just buy a left back that can do everything so that we don't have to do this charade anymore. Kivior playing left back, Timber being moved over to left back is all a charade because Tommy and Zinchenko can't stay fit. I don't know how like it we have a left back situation. Whether people want to buy into it or not, that's fair enough. But if we went into next season with the exact same defense, I'd be worried because you can already put 2 of them to the side and say, like, they're not going to be there. And that doesn't mean that we don't need things in other positions. So, left back problem doesn't mean, well, if we get a left back, that means we're not going to get anything else. Because I know that that's what people are already doing. They're doing, well, I don't want to agree with you on the left back thing because then that means that we probably won't get anything else. I don't think needing a left back means that that's an excuse not to get another midfielder and an attacker. We have a left back problem because we bought poorly in that position. We need a left back, but we also need a midfielder and an attacker. So we have multiple issues in multiple positions. But if you don't think we have a left back problem, I don't know what to tell you. Rishab says, can't Tommy also play right back? Is Tommy ever fit? Again, injury prone players don't count because you also have to account for them always like being injured when we need them. So Tommy and Zinchenko are nice to have, but you can't rely upon them. So you need 2 players in like you need at least 3 fullbacks that you can rely upon, guys. At least 3. We don't really have that are reliable availability wise and also reliable in terms of performance. We don't really have that. So, listen, buying a left back is important, I think. You can move Timber to the other side, which is where he was supposed to be, and not have to worry about Zinchenko and Tommy taking turns on the medical table. And both of them also have White and Timber are more complete than either one of Zinchenko or Tommy because the both of them have major gaps in their game that don't allow us to be the best that we can be. So we need a left back. Yo-Yo says renewing Tommy and Georgie clearly shows that the club want to kick the can further down the road. I mean, if you think that, like, if you think re-signing Tommy and Jorginho effectively means that we won't buy another defender and we won't buy a midfielder because they think that's good enough. I don't actually agree with that. I personally, I don't think that that's what that means, because kicking the can down the road would mean that we still don't address midfield and we don't buy a left back. And those are two things that I feel like we're almost guaranteed. Where I'm most concerned is not about left back. I know we're going to get one. Not about midfield. I know we're going to get one. I'm most concerned about what we do up front, because I feel like that's where we kick the can down the road the most. Is we buy players that aren't really scorers. We don't buy players with elite qualities up front. The best thing that I don't remember who tweeted it, but they said that it looks like Arteta has spent 50 million on the attack. Like Arsenal's attack looks like Arteta spent 50 million on. That was the best tweet I've ever seen, because it was true. Like you could say, well, Kai Havertz, well, he started off with him in midfield, so he doesn't really count. And you can add Trossard in there, but like fundamentally, that's where I feel like we've kicked the can down the road the most. I know we're gonna get a defender. I know it, because we're definitely gonna get one. And we're probably gonna get a midfielder too. Like I'm like 100% sure on that. The attack, shit. Caleb says, Jess, would you be satisfied if we only bought Bruno G and Sesko as our main signings next summer, including a backup goalkeeper? That's it? Well, satisfied is an interesting word, but no, I would not be satisfied. I wouldn't be satisfied, because I feel like we should have 3 main signings, 2 of which should be attackers, 1 should be a left winger, and the other one should be like a Sesko. I'd be happy with a Sesko, because I know Havertz is gonna be starting center forward next season. It's so obvious. But then the left wing, like a special left winger would be great, and then a midfielder, and then just the left back could be like Hato or something. That would be satisfying, but that is not satisfying. Now that could improve us a lot, but we still have major gaps that we need to like fix. The attack has been neglected for so long. And as an Arsenal fan, you know that a good attack can paper over a lot of cracks. It really can. A good attack. That's the thing about like the way that we are right now, is that we need to be like perfect to win every single game. Like there's not a lot of games where we can be like shit and still win. Like today we were shit and we won, but it's the last day of the season. But we kind of have to be really, really good every single game, because we don't have attackers that can bail us out. Our defense bails out our attack more than our attack bails out our defense. And that to me is like a little bit of like we need a get out of jail free card. You know, it's like when Arsenal just forgot about defense at all, we had so many good attackers that kind of like kept us going, and it was like fine. I'm not saying we need to go back to that, but it would be nice if Saliba and Gabriel could have bad games, but we still ended up with the win. They cannot have a bad game. They cannot have a bad game, because there's never going to be a time where the attack just decides, you know what? We're going to fucking win this hard ass game. And Saliba and Gabriel, you know, they forgot how to kick a ball, but we're just going to, no. Like our defense has to keep clean sheets. Like I love it, but I also think it's a failure in the way that we've recruited. Like it's time to buy 2 attackers and stop the nonsense, you know? Hyder says, would you be happy if we get Sesko and Javi Simmons as our 2 attacking players? Yes, I would be. Javi Simmons, I would take him, even if I don't 100% agree that he's like 100% what we need at the wing. I think we need more speed. And he's not necessarily like the quickest, but his talent level is so good that I feel like you would get over not having the speed, if that makes sense. He is the type of player that he's going to be so good in any position that you put him in. And his technical level is so high. And he also has stardust. Yeah, I would take Javi Simmons. Do I think we will go for him? No, because of the reasons that I said. He has stardust and he has like otherworldly talent, but we like to shop in the level just below. We should just buy really good players. Javi is the type of player that we should just throw the bag at and try to see if PSG would bite. Sesko, I would take, obviously, the physical qualities if they marry up with the trajectory of what he will be as a finisher. We're talking about in the next 1-2 years, we have a 20 plus goal per season striker. So yeah, I would bring in both of those as our attackers. You'd still need to get a midfielder. Like if we were to get Sesko, let's say Sesko, Xavi Simons, Bruno G, and Hato, I'll go to bed happy. I'll be the happiest. Like y'all would not see me complain, but you are gonna see me complain because we're not gonna do that. So I will be complaining. So yeah. Let's see. Seawalder says I'd be satisfied if we only bought De Jong. Fair. Chris says we need a left back and a winger as well. Simple as that. Period. Like we do. Like, come on. Nocturnal Gunner says Xavi, I want to run to you. Mr. Adams says Jessica, do you rate João Neves? Do I rate him? I don't know. I rate the comps. I rate the hype, if that makes sense. Like, but do I feel like that's who we should go for? I don't know. Like, it's such a tough one because Benfica are going to want a lot of money. So he's going to cost probably just as much, if not more, than Bruno Guimaraes. But we don't actually know how it's going to translate to the Prem. Now, I think players from the Portuguese league from a physical standpoint, are able to play in the Premier League. But there have been some big misses. There have been some players that have went for very inflated fees that haven't necessarily lived up to that. Somebody like a João Felix, or depending on what you think about Nunez, Darwin Nunez. Am I afraid that we would be going in that same direction and just off of vibes and a tucked in shirt, we'd get glamored into spending 100 million on the kid? Yeah. And I don't think we have any room for misses, especially misses that big. So yeah, I think that we would need to go for somebody a little bit more proven, just because we don't have the first, this is going to sound so fucked up, but I don't really trust Arteta with a kid like that. Like, I feel like you need somebody that's a little bit more proven that can just kind of step into a system, because I'm not sure that like integrating him in a season where we're under pressure would be great for Mikel. So go get somebody that's already kind of the finished article or close to it. That doesn't have to be Bruno. I know people are like, oh, no, Bruno, no, Bruno. No, Bruno, fine, but go get somebody else. But don't get the kid. Don't get the kid. Boy says, Gyökeres, Nico Williams, Xavi Simons, João Hato, my final transfer list on the first day of the offseason. You're missing something. You're missing a midfielder. I was like, wait. So who's gonna play where? So do you think you're gonna, I mean, you could do Rice, Xavi Simons, and Odegaard. You could do that. That's not what I would do at all. But him as the other attacker, I could get behind that. Nico Williams, yeah, whatever. Gyökeres, I like him too. He's really good. Caleb says Bruno G is one of the best midfielders in the Prem. He would transform our midfield. Listen, I'm not even going to try to listen. I know people are mad that he hit Jorginho over the head. I get that. But genuinely, he is one of the best midfielders in the league, and he would instantly just walk into our team and make us so much better. But I think also people maybe view him as a more defensive midfielder, because he's had to play 6 for Newcastle. That's mostly because they haven't bought one. If you watched him in Brazil or at Lyon, he never really played as like a number 6. He played more as like a number 8. He was more of the just traditional center midfielder, and like Paquetá or whoever else would play more like the attacking one. But I think another reason why people don't want Bruno G, I'm like reading between the lines, is that they view him as another DM and they want somebody more attacking because attacking signings are more like exciting and we need more, vibes up front. I get that. So you'd want more of like a Xavi Simmons in there because Xavi Simmons equals more goals. I don't know if I necessarily feel like that's the right combination for us, but I can kind of understand it. What I cannot get behind is Bruno G is not good. To me, that just say you don't want him. Like, just say you don't want him. I cannot get behind it. Christopher says really excels at winning the ball back, very strong. Caleb says Rice 6, Bruno G and Odegaard as dual 8s, and Saka, Sesko, new winger, we would cook. That's kind of the look I'm going for, but we all like I'm just playing fucking Football Manager in my mind. Like I'm not really, it's not really what I think, the club is going to make the decision. So, I hope that they just get a midfielder that completes the nonsense because there's just no reason to continue to not have a completed midfield. So whether it's Bruno G or somebody else, you just have to get it done. Um, so yeah, I saw something from Foxy. Foxy is a Newcastle fan, so he would know. But Foxy says Bruno got us Europe. Without him, we would have been bottom half easily. He's been playing with Longstaff all season, and yeah, I can understand why the fan base is kind of split on him. We're quite sensitive, so if you hurt one of our players or something like that, we don't want you. Um, and then he's viewed more as like a defensive signing and people want somebody more exciting. And so yeah, I can see that. I just feel like if you actually watch him play, there's no way you can think he's not one of the best midfielders in the league. There's just no way. He scores goals, he creates loads of chances, he's good defensively, like he can play higher, he can play deeper. Like the only thing I don't like about him is the thuggish ruggish boy thing. That's the one thing I don't like about him, but I feel like that's a mask that he put on to be more liked by the Newcastle faithful and it's worked for him, but genuinely like, he can let that shit go. Like just play football, like you're good enough. Like that thuggish thing that he's doing is really cringe. Like it really is. Caesar says simple as the wish list delusion is goalkeeper sub if Rams is no more, Diamande, Hato, and Gutierrez, Frankie, Brant Mold. So you just went all out. No, Caesar, we need to come back to reality. I know you said delusion, but I thought it was going to be a lot less than this, honey. Like you want a whole new damn team. We don't need a whole new team. We don't need a whole new team. Come on now. This is a whole new team. Let's keep it funky. This is a whole new team. You want a new center back, a new Hato and Gutierrez. Come on now. We don't need all that. Frankie and Brandt and Liao and Sesko. Now, see, that's just too damn much. We need like 3-4 top quality signings. Junior says, I still trust in ESR. Big summer ahead for him. I think we should sell. But yeah, Hyder says, hi, Jess. I just want to say thanks for the stream. It was much needed to focus on next season and be positive. If that's what I did for you, I'm glad, because I'm just up here just brain dumping on you guys. So, and we've been going for almost 3 hours now, so we're going to get out of here. But I just figured, why not? There's 550 of you guys in here, and I know some people like went in and out. So it's fine. We all need this little bit of therapy, I think. Blaze says some fans will cry if Man City would buy Bruno G and Paquetá and then dominate the league again. They don't know. They don't know. Tabuki says Leao, Sesko, Davies, Neves. That's also to me looks like a decent window. Leao, yeah, but winger, Sesko, Davies, Neves. But we're just obsessed with Hato. So Yo-Yo says my prediction is Edu will once again fail to make sufficient money for the club with fans making excuses. Listen, I saw the little report that Ramsdale for 15 million, and I just was like, I wasn't even that surprised because as much as people are like, there's no way we would sell him for 15 million. Where have you been for the last 3 years? We have always undersold for less than what players are really worth. Fundamentally, we have a really difficult time getting money for our signings. And, at first it was, is the pandemic, they're not that good. Then it's always, they're not that good, something's wrong with the market. We will sell Ramsdale for peanuts. Like, we will sell him for peanuts. We won't be able to get the English tax or the built up profile tax. It's going to be less than what we paid for him. We'll get nothing for any of the other players that we sell. Like, Edu right now, until proven otherwise, is not good at selling. So a lot of these lofty dreams we have are very, like, they also have to come with good sales, and it does hold us back in the market, not being able to sell our players, and we always sell too late, and we don't ever get what we should be getting for a player. I think Balogun and probably Willock have been some of our better sales. But other than that, it's always been, well, it's just because they're not very good. I've seen other teams sell shitty players for more money. Like, no, like, he's just not very good at selling. So we will probably give Newcastle Ramsdale for cheap. And what also sucks is that he can't stay quiet. And so Ramsdale doing things like coming out on social media and saying, first I've heard of it, is also damaging, because you don't want your players talking about your transfers. So I just want him to be quiet. Like, he needs to, like, he's advised so poorly. I know he's a busybody, but shh, like, be quiet. Um, like, shush. You know? Let's see. Precker says, just bring back Woshuk back for the vibes as backup goalkeeper. Listen, maybe we need cigarettes. Maybe we need cigarettes and vibes in the dressing room again. Maybe that's what we need, even though we didn't really want anything with him either. But you know what I mean? Boy says Timber is a Saliba sub. We're just gonna have to, like, we're not going to get everything. So what would you rather have? A left back so we don't have to rely upon Tommy and Zinchenko to be fit? Or would you want to buy a center back and Saliba and Gabriel stay fit all season so we don't really use him, but still have to rely upon Tommy and Zinny? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but like, what is more likely? Saliba or Gabriel getting injured, or Tommy and Zinchenko getting injured? If it's more likely the other two, then you need a left back. And we have so many center backs. We've only really bought center backs to play fullback. So we have center backs, and I'm sorry, but I don't think our team should have to be perfect all the time to be able to win games. Like, we should be able to go through some games here and there with Kivior at center back, with Tommy at center back, with Ben White at center back, and still win fucking games. The fact that we don't feel like we could is more, I think, about the fact that when we rotate, we look diabolically bad. And that's coaching to me. That's not just about the players. Like, we should be able to rotate a little bit. Yo-Yo says the money seems to only be in Haaland, so Saka will need to be shifted to balance the books. I kid. Yo-Yo sees, no, you're bringing the vibes down. You're bringing the vibes down. The vibes are already kind of low. Come on, Yo-Yo. Why you got to kick us while we're down? Boy says Timber covers 3 positions in a stretch squad. He covers 2 in a balanced squad. He covers 1 in a good squad. So yeah. I kind of agree with that. So Caesar saying Timber, Saliba sub, nah. Again, I just feel like you're either going to get the center back so that you can make sure that you have backup that's like for like with Saliba, but you're still going to leave left back with holes. But some of you guys just want to move Timber over there, buy a center back that probably will be used once or twice, because if Saliba and Gabriel are fit, they will play. So you're going to have somebody that you spend a lot of money on that may not be used, but you're going to move Timber over to the right or to the left. But if something happens to White, or we need to rest White or something like that, then you don't have the cover that you need. Like, I don't think you're thinking fully through it. Some players that are going to cover other positions are not going to be the best suited for that. They're not going to be better than somebody that you would have bought just naturally to play that position. But genuinely, I'd rather see Timber and Tommy and Ben White used as emergency center backs than go through another season with the ring around the rosy for the fucking left back. I don't want to see that anymore. I'm fucking tired. ring around the rosy left back is driving me out. Like, it's driving me out of my mind. So I need a left back. And so if that means that other people have to just step in for CB, then other guys going to step. Some of these players are better backup center backs than they are fullbacks anyway. So just let them play fullback, or let them play center back. What they actually are. Yo-Yo says the talent in the squad is bottom heavy. Time to be brave and spending in the attack. Philip says Tomiyasu is the perfect Saliba backup. 6'2", pace strength, amazing defender, gets injured running like a fullback. And that, like, but listen, people would rather, and like I've went between this, but I do feel like there's just no way you could look at the ring around the rosy that we've done with left back and not think that we might need to just settle that. And then we again, we have like 3 or 4 players that can play center back and can cover those positions in the it's gonna be very rare that we have Saliba or Gabriel out for a long period, but it's very likely that we could have 2 or 3 fullbacks out at once. So let's think. Let's think. Let's think. Caesar says, yes, that's probably why we signed Hato, but we see if we will we wait, but we will see if Saliba gets injured. We were linked to Diomande. We were, but that was also when I think Arteta was more like liking our left back choices, but we've been exposed at left back this season. I think one of the stories of the season is Zinchenko being pretty much rendered unusable this season because, he just we have outgrown the inversion the way that we were doing it last season, and also like his defensive frailties, and then having Tomiyasu always injured, and then Kivior, who has been really hit or miss this season. So yes, if Saliba gets injured, then if we buy a left back, people will be like, see, I told you, but equally, I still think it's more likely that the left back is still a problem than our center back pairing. And we've bought so many center backs, like one of them could step in. Actually, I like the idea of Tomiyasu at center back. I think he's our best backup center back, like for both sides. So maybe that will just work out for us. Brian says, how would you rate Kai's season? Also, I think everyone wants a striker, but I think a winger and our third midfielder are bigger needs. I would rate Kai's season as probably a 6.5 out of 10. I think the first half of the season just cannot be ignored, but I also think that was a big part of it was him not playing in a position that suited him that well. I understand what Arteta was trying to do, but we genuinely need 3 midfielders in midfield for us to function. And Kai just wasn't giving enough midfieldy, vibes for us. You guys know what I mean. Like, he just wasn't really midfielding the way that we needed him to do. And so I don't think he was terrible there, but I do think that whole thing really set us back. And it's set us back a little bit. And so I would say a 6.5 out of 10. Like, his first half of the season was basically like an incomplete, I'll get like a 4 or 5, and then like the second half of the season has been much better. So like a 6.5, out of 10, with a lot of promise in terms of what he can give with a full season up front. But I still think we need a striker, but I would be I agree with you that the winger and the third midfielder are bigger needs, but I still feel like if we could get a Sesko as the younger, I don't think Sesko, depending on the fee, which I think it's ending up being 55 million, is more cost effective and will allow us to get a winger too than if we bought just the striker. The striker, whatever striker we go for, is going to cost us almost 100 million. We know that. So I think buying Sesko would allow us to still get the winger too, which I think we need both. But if you just go for the striker, I think you fully miss out on the winger. So it just depends. But yeah, I think Kai's season has been a tale of two halves. It really has been. The first half of the season was really strange, and I don't think it was all just him. I think he had to get used to the team and used to being in a different environment and all this kind of stuff. But I also just think that he's been really, really good in the second half of the season. It can't really be ignored, so 6.5, I think. maybe even a 7, something around there. Unknown C, I really appreciate this. That's a really generous super chat. Really, like, yeah, you're adding to my coffee fund, so thank you so much. Says 2.5 hour stream, getting agreement with a boy. Nah, this is some dedicated therapy. Big up. Exactly. Like, but we all need this. Like, there's still 550 of you guys in here. I'll probably get out of here soon, but um going into the summer, like I was saying on the watch along, is I really want to shut the door on this season and not drag this season's scars into this next season, because I personally, as a fan, I did not enjoy the season that much because I was still feeling the pain of the season prior, and so everything was felt negative or bad or stressful, and I felt it in the stadium, I felt it just watching the games, and so I really want to like shut the door on this season and really start next season with like more just like fresh slate, because I didn't enjoy this season, especially the beginning part. It was just too I had not gotten over the season prior, and so anytime we didn't look 100%, it was like I was like, "Oh my god, we're so bad," and I'm like, we're really good this season. We just weren't good enough, and so we're really close, but really far. There's so many things that we can improve upon, but one thing I will not be doing is dragging last season's scars into the next season. I'm gonna be as delusional as possible that we're gonna win something, because that I feel like that's the only way that we're gonna be able to continue to challenge, is if when we're disappointed, we can't just always throw it out and be like so like ready to kill everyone every single time we don't get exactly what we need, because we're so close. Um, and I do think the players feed off of that like lack of belief. And we spoke about this at the beginning of the stream. It's a two-way street. The fans have to have goldfish memories, and so do the players, and they feed off of each other. And it's like a negative cycle. When the fans are losing it, the players don't play as well. So I think we all need to work together. Goldfish memory, put this behind us, go into the new season afresh, because listen, City aren't really going to go anywhere. So this is what we're up against. So we really can't be pretending like it's not a possibility that we could end up in the same place next season. But I think it would just be a much more enjoyable season if we come at it from a place of excitement and not anxiety and dread, because this season has not been that enjoyable. Yo-Yo says left back has been a point of concern since Arteta first walked through the door, with a fragile Tierney and Ainsley Maitland-Niles when one foot out the door and Xhaka doing a job. Left back is definitely something that just needs to be completed. I don't know why it just cannot be. It's like we have pieces of a left back that we don't like, injury prone. Just buy someone that can play 90% of the games. Like 90% of the games that does everything. Like I think that just makes the most sense. So yeah, Vin Diesel says family. Yo-Yo says 2 point difference. I fear the season will haunt Arteta more than last season. Um, let's see, because I don't know what happened this season, but it did kind of feel like he tried a galaxy brain thing and then he really clammed up, and then like we really got really like, I don't know if he was like the only way that we can concede less is to be really defensive and go really staunch, with the way that we approach games, and be really kind of like calculated, not calculated, what's the word, like conservative. Um, and that was his response to the season prior. This next season, his response has to be, I feel like, how does he get his team to perform at a high level under pressure and feel confident in winning? I feel like he needs to work on the mentality of this team more than anything, and a lot of that has to do with how he approaches things. Because I think he also gives fear off in some of the ways that he sets up in games, and I think he almost has to find a way to get them to perform at a high level under pressure, which is something that I've always thought that like Klopp does a really good job at. I feel like Liverpool, not this season because obviously they had some external things going on with knowing that Klopp is going to leave, but one thing I've always liked about the way that Liverpool approach things is even when they don't win, they always go into every single competition, I feel like, thinking that they can win, thinking that they will win. and there's almost like this magical thing that like even when they're not playing well, they still win. Even if they're, down, they can come back. And I feel like Klopp provided like a environment for them to lose the league, but always come back with the vibe that they can win. Like this is the year, and allow them to play in pressurized situations, but almost like revel in it and be like enjoying it. I feel like our players are weighed down by the pressure. And so when we're in really pressurized situations, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, we just don't even look like ourselves. And so I do think that how he approaches the season is not just about tactics. That's part of it, but it's also getting the players in a mindset where they're like, you're going to be in this situation again, so you need to be able to revel in it and play with almost like a little bit of freedom and excitement. So yeah. Christopher says we're a young team and we've got a bright future. Um, it is a young team with a bright future. And I don't think that Christopher is using it as an excuse either. I don't think he said we're a young team, so that's why we didn't win anything. He said we're a young team and we have a bright future. That's different than giving an excuse. He didn't say that exactly. Christopher is saying we have a future is bright. Burmese says we looked nervous during our last few games. Exactly. So, and nervousness makes sense, but if you're so nervous that you can't perform to your level, that's a problem. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Arteta approaches next season. I think that's really important. I don't think there's any way you can fuck up the transfer window because it's so obvious what we need. But this is Edu and Arteta. They will find some weird ways to need something and recreate the wheel, and we'll cover it all. There's 500 of you guys watching, so make sure you guys like and subscribe. But I also want to let you guys know that we have been doing watch-alongs on TIFO. Those watch-alongs will continue, and you're probably like, what are you going to do watch-alongs for in the summer? We'll obviously do them for the preseason games, but we're also going to do classic rewatches. So I like rewatching old games because I'm nostalgic, because I'm a 90s baby. And so we will do some of those on a weekly basis. So on a weekly basis, and we'll start it probably in a couple of weeks, though, like after the break. But I really want to find like a couple of games that we can all watch together, whether that's on YouTube or maybe on the Arsenal website or whatever, and just go back and like just watch together, like almost like a little hangout. So make sure you guys are, subscribed and got your notifications on, and also that you guys are members on TIFO. It's completely free to become a member for the channel on TIFO, and I'll just put the link here as well, so that you guys can use this link to just, be aware of what's going on watch-alongs wise. So I'll get you guys a little schedule going, but I feel like we should rewatch like games, from the Emirates era, games from the Highbury era, and just like have a little bit of fun. This is what I do for fun, but hopefully you guys find it fun as well. But make sure you guys click on that link, and that'll take you to the page, and then you guys can just save it, and then you guys can check back. And when I start to like set up the watch alongs, you guys can join them, because I think that'll be really, really fun. And like C is saying, get involved in the watch alongs. And we'll also do some transfer stuff on there as well. So yeah, big summer ahead. Make sure you guys are all keeping up to date on everything. Like I said, set notifications, like this video. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the summer content. Love you guys to death, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.